Kia ora koutou and welcome to Acropolis in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 2 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. You are an architect planning out a city in ancient Greece. Can you build the right districts in the right places and take advantage of the local hills in order to build the most impressive city of all? The game ends once all tiles and all the stacks of tiles have been placed. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get those in a bunch of ways. Drafting. You will select tiles from an available display. Tile placement. You will then place the tiles in your city. Set collection. You will try to place those tiles in a way that scores you points. Player turn. Take all the tiles matching the number of players you have. Shuffle them and make 11 piles, with each pile having tiles equal to the number of players plus 1. Place the remaining tiles in a row where everyone can see them. Each tile consists of 3 different spaces made up of different colours and types of area. When it is your turn, you will choose a tile from the row to pick. You can claim the leftmost one for free, or choose one further right for 1 stone per space skipped. You start one central tile, and after drafting a tile, you must place it into your city. Tiles are made up of plazas, which are circular regions with stars in them, and districts, which are coloured buildings. As a general rule, you will score 1 point per star on your plazas for each matching district in a scoring position. Blue scores points for the largest connected blue group of districts. Here that is 4 districts, and as we have 2 blue stars, this here is worth 8 points. Yellow districts score points if they are not touching, so moving this tile here allows both districts to score. Orange districts only score points if they are at the edge of your city, so this orange tile will not score points here. Purple tiles will only score points if they are surrounded on all sides, so we would have to close this one up to score it. And green scores wherever it is placed. The white districts are quarries, and you gain 1 stone for placing a tile on top of them. You can place it on top of any tile as long as the new tile straddles at least 2 tiles below it. Now why would you do this? Because height acts as a point multiplier. That level 3 yellow tile is now worth 6 points, and all those elevated blue tiles combine for 28 points. Players continue taking tiles and paying in stone not to take the left one until only 1 tile remains. Then 5 new tiles are added in, and play until all tiles are placed. Why would you like this game? Acropolis is lighter than many of the games we choose to cover on the channel, but I'm glad we made an exception, as it really is a fun, fast and thinky wee game. And due to the rule where you have to pick up the first draft option unless you spend stone, the game rarely grinds to a halt as people agonize over what tile to take. The placement and scoring rules are nice and straightforward and very logical. Of course the barracks tiles want to be at the edge of the city, and if you want to dial the complexity up a notch, you can always use the variant scoring rules. All up, a super family friendly game that could be a fine filler for other groups. The best thing about this game is its wonderful combination of being easy to teach and just deep enough to be challenging. However, scoring at the end of the game does take a little while as there are lots of things to calculate. And while it's fun enough, I can't imagine playing 10 games of it back to back to fill an evening. For another fast playing game for 2, try Santorini. And for a more complicated city builder, try Suburbia. Acropolis, elevated gameplay. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Archaeos Society in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 6 players, playing time is short to medium, and it's a pretty simple game. You are members of the Archaeos Society, a group of 20th century relic hunters plundering the world to fill the museums of imperial powers. Can you launch the biggest expeditions and explore the most sites? The game lasts for 2 or 3 seasons, and each season ends immediately once the 3rd monkey card is drawn from the deck. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get those mostly from collecting sets and advancing on site tracks. Drafting. You will draft cards from the face-up display. Set collection. Cards have a type and a colour, and collecting these sets is the key to winning. Card management. You can hold up to 10 cards in your hand at once. Player turn. The game comes with 12 types of cards. For each game you play, select 6 of them. Shuffle them all together and then cut the deck. Shuffle the 3 monkey cards into the bottom half. Each player starts with 1 card in hand, and there are some cards in the face-up display. On your turn, you may do one of 2 actions. The first is to draw a card, and you may do this from the display or take a random one from the top of the deck. Note that when players take a card from the display, it is not immediately replaced. The second action is to make an expedition out of card sets. Here are the 6 cards we have in our hand. We can make a set of photographers, as they are the same card type, and we could lead that set with either the blue or purple photographer. What card is on top matters for 2 reasons. The first is each colour matches one of the site tracks. If your set of cards is equal to or higher than the number ahead of your marker, you would advance. Here we have 2 cards, and purple is 4 and blue 3, so our photographers would not advance us. We can make a purple set of 3, but that still isn't enough to advance, unless we lead with the guide, because the second reason the card on top matters is its class, and each class has a different special ability when they are the leader of an expedition. The guide's is that the group counts as being one bigger in order to move on a sight track. The pilot special is that you can advance on a second track as well, so we can advance on the blue and yellow track. Each expedition you send out in a season is stored by your player board, and it's worth points at the end of each season. Any cards not used are discarded face up into the display. Each of the 12 leaders has a different power. For example, the cartographer can let you play a second set of cards out of your hand, the linguist lets you advance on this track, which rewards victory points and sight track advancements, and the curator lets you collect relics from each colored track for bonus points. The photographer counts as being one set bigger than it is for scoring. You also score points based on your marker's location on each and every track. Why would you like this game? First of all, Archaeos Society is a reworking of the game Ethnos, but it's not just a retheming. That game was quite a confrontational area control game. Archaeos Society is a lot more chill. The fundamental simplicity of your turn being to draw either one card or play a set is neato, and really easy to teach, while also providing plenty of brain ache as you wonder if you can draw just one more card. And the fact you have to discard every unused card is just brilliant, and adds tension to the game while making hoarding pointless. And the double-sided sideboards combined with the various wacky powers on the 12 sets of cards will entertain people who need variable setups. Oh, and the storage solution is very simple and clever. All up, a game for lots of groups and far more appealing and accessible than ugly old Ethnos. The best thing about this game is the tension you get when two of the monkeys are already on the table and the next card might end the game. However, Ethnos was an in-your-face game, and if that appealed to you, then Archaeos Society is a totally different vibe. You might be better off staying in Slovakia with the trolls. Oh, and the students are marked cards, which is slightly annoying once you notice it. Want something with a little bit more biff? Try Libertalia. And for a bigger set collection game, track down Museum. Archaeos Society. Its gold medal is now on display at the British Museum. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Art Society in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. You are an art collector trying to assemble the greatest and most interesting art collection of all. Can you impress the impressionists and master the masters? The game ends if each player has used all of their 20 bidding cards, or if any player's personal board is completely full, or if they have gained 2 paintings they cannot place on their board. The winner is the player with the most points, which is entirely based on what paintings you are displaying. Auctions. Every round there will be an auction. Drafting. That auction determines the draft order for these tiles. Tile placement, which you then place on your board to score points. Player turn. You'll have a player board and will be given a random starting tile. It must be placed covering one of the 2 stars on your board. You will also get a set of 20 bid cards numbered 1 through 20. Assign one of these white cards to each player. This determines the turn order for the first turn. The first player is the auctioneer and looks at the stack of tiles in the box. They take a number of tiles from the box equal to the number of players plus 1 and place them face down in the middle of the table. You can choose any numbers and any combination of shapes. Then place a marker above each group to show their rating and then flip them over. Aside from size and rating, each painting has 2 major pieces of information. The type of painting it is, shown by the coloured symbol, and what type of frame it has. Now the auction takes place, with each player secretly selecting one of their bid cards and placing it face down on their personal stack. Reveal them all at the same time. The highest bidding player goes first, and so on down. In the case of a tie, the highest previous bid wins the tiebreak. Once spent, you do not get your bid cards back. Players select their tiles until only one remains, and that one is placed at the central board at the edge matching its type colour. Its type marker is moved ahead a number of spaces equal to the painting's rating. If moving a painting ahead would have it share a space with another marker, it is bumped back. When placing a tile on your board, there are several things to note. The first is that if you connect 2 paintings with the same symbol, so here yellow, neither will score points at game end. The second is that paintings must connect to an existing one. The third point is that when 2 paintings share a frame type, you get to place a bonus victory point tile. And here we place a frame that touches 3 other frames, and we get 3 points of decor bonus tiles to place. Note this lighter band here. This is the eye line, and paintings here may score more points. Your assistant can hold 1 painting for you to place later, and if you cannot place a painting at all, you can swap your painting for one of the spare ones by the main board. Once the game ends, move these markers to the top of the board based on the order they finished in. The leftmost painting types are only worth 2 victory points, while the rightmost ones are worth 5 victory points, and 8 if they are in your eye line. At the end of a round, the first player marker moves to the right, and they start a new auction. Why would you like this game? There is a lot to love in Art Society, but I'll start off with the obvious. It's a great looking game, and the process of drafting paintings and placing them on your display in the most efficient way possible is very satisfying. And while the game isn't cutthroat or in your face at all, the auctions and shared scoring system you can manipulate definitely make you feel like you are in competition. The auction system is sneaky too, because there are occasions where it's pretty good to go last. All up, this is a clever game with lots of fun decisions, but without unnecessary complexity, and I'd recommend it for just about any group. The best thing about this game is the paintings. So many classic artworks presented with unique twists. However, the rules around the assisted, excess paintings, and exchanging paintings is written in a very confusing way, so I highly recommend you get how those rules work clear in your mind before playing. And as mentioned, there's no direct way to attack other players or to slow them down. For a simpler game about art auctions, try Modern Art. And for a different take on set collection, try Museum. Art Society. Looks good in any collection. Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Assassin's Creed in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players. Playing time is medium, and it's a pretty complex game. It is Renaissance Venice, and you are the members of the Brotherhood of Assassins. Can you sneak and fight your way through this 26-game campaign? Each mission is called a memory, and you all win when you complete the objectives. You all lose if every assassin is defeated. Dice. Conflict and stealth are resolved using dice. Character development. Characters can level up, gain new gear and skills. Player turn. Set up the board as shown in the campaign book and grab an assassin board for each player. If you are playing solo, you will need at least 2 characters. A huge part of this game is concealment. When an assassin is concealed, they have their player color base. Once they are spotted, that base is replaced with a red one. If they move away from all enemies, they become concealed again, leaving the red base behind. But once any assassin has been revealed, the alarm goes off, which makes more enemies spawn and generally makes the game harder. Start the turn by turning over an event card and resolving it. It is then the action phase, and each assassin has 3 actions, tracked using these cubes. Assassins can take their actions in any order. You may spend an action to move into an adjacent orthogonal tile, so these 4. Assassins can climb to rooftops and hide out in the water. If you move into an area with enemies, roll a red die for each. Blanks are fine, but if you roll an eye, you are spotted. And if the alarm is going, you are spotted on this roll as well. If you move away from a group, half the enemies rounded down will chase you. Ladders exist to let enemies move up to rooftops. You can take a fight action. Use your weapon and pick a tile to attack. With a melee weapon, that is your current tile. Roll the white dice shown on your weapon. These symbols are hits, and each enemy has on their card how many hits they can take. This symbol triggers a bonus, and these ones allow the enemy to retaliate. Defeated enemies are knocked down. Then check your weapon. This one makes us visible and sounds the alarm. Ranged attacks work in a very similar way. Multiple assassins can all attack at once, potentially wiping out all enemies to prevent retaliations. Concealed assassins or revealed ones without nearby enemies can spend actions to complete objectives. And if stealthy, you can use your hidden blade to remove guards. You can also remove bodies and collect loot, use equipment on your character sheet, or save an action for the next turn. In some missions, you'll have to climb towers in order to reveal the next part of the mission, jumping afterwards into a nice hay pile. Finally, enemies will spawn and may be alerted by piles of bodies. Enemies will move towards red bases, if adjacent, or the direction shown on the event. Enemies guarding objectives won't move. Enemies sharing a space with an assassin will try to spot them, and spotted assassins will be attacked by both melee and ranged enemies, losing health for each hit done. Why would you like this game? If you watched our review of V-Sabotage, you might notice a whole bunch of similarities between the 2 games, and that's because Assassin's Creed takes the excellent core stealth-first, combat-second gameplay of V-Sabotage and blends it with the Assassin's Creed universe stunningly well. As a thematic experience, it pays loving attention to what made Assassin's Creed unique, right down to jumping in those little hay piles. I really like the change in tempo in this game when the alarm goes off. You really want to get as far as you can without that happening, and adjusting your plans for a badly timed alarm is a cornerstone of the game. And if you like the feel of legacy games where you get to open stuff but hate destroying things, this one could be for you. I'd recommend it most for 1 to 2 players who want to play through a full campaign with a heavy stealth and planning focus. The best thing about this game is it really feels like Assassin's Creed. However, this is a seriously big box game with a ton of miniatures, therefore it's not an easy commitment to make in terms of money, although the retail version has standees. And while I think the stealth gameplay is very good, you do need some resilience, as the game can get flat out mean once the alarm is raised. The rulebook's a bit of a mess too. As mentioned, this is heavily inspired by V-Sabotage, and for something more fighty, check out Batman Gotham City Chronicles. Assassin's Creed, those hay piles do look comfy. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Autobahn in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. Over a period of 70 years, you will be heading up construction of Germany's mighty Autobahn system. Can you build the best roads, deliver goods, and ultimately promote your people into positions of authority to win? The game lasts for 3 eras, and each era ends after the last road marker in its box is placed. The winner is the player with the most points, and you score those based on where your workers are on this board. Action selection. Each turn you will play a card to take an action. Deck building. You start with a basic hand of cards and will add more throughout the game. Pick up and deliver. You will load up trucks with goods to deliver. Play a turn. A key concept in this game is that each Autobahn has a colour, and cards also have a colour. And to take an action that affects something on that colour Autobahn, you need the matching card. You start with this hand of 6 cards, and may take 1 action per turn, shown at the top of your board. Let's run through them. The key action lets you move the matching key from the left to the middle of the board. These are technologies, and they have 2 effects. First, each grants a bonus of some kind to the upgrading roads, deliveries, and service station actions. They also denote which rooms in the scoring board your workers can be in. The build road action is next, and it costs 8 because this is Era 3 and it's the second part of a 2-part road. Claim the bonus token on the road. These tokens are one-off bonuses you can use later. In this case, this one would let us build another road. The upgrade action is next, and it costs 16 because if you're upgrading a double section, you must do both. Upgraded roads and connections increase the worth of each city on that route. In both build and upgrade actions, you take one of your workers and place them on the far right of the matching coloured office. If that shuts a worker off the desk, they go to the lobby. The next action is to load a truck, and each production centre has a card and a good. You can then move your trucks along the roads. Note, whenever you play a card to any action and you have a truck on a road matching that colour, it moves. If a truck moves off the board, it delivers its carried goods. This may give you a one-off power you can trigger at the start of your next turn. You can also place service stations, which give you strong bonuses when your own trucks pass them, and weaker bonuses when other players' trucks do. And once per era, you can place a worker here just to gain funding. This symbol advances you on this track, which gives you upgrades including new cards, technologies, and promotions. Promotions are how you advance in the scoring rooms from the lobby. The scoring rooms score based on workers in the office, deliveries made, service stations, and money. You may take an action to reclaim your cards, gaining 1 coin for each, or if you have played them all, reclaim them for free. At the end of each era, you will get money and promotions based on the value of the roads and your contributions to building them. And at the start of Era 3, add in East Germany. Rammstein. Why would you like this game? Autobahn has a lot happening in it and contains a myriad of different mechanisms. Network building, area majority scoring, card management, deck building, pick up and deliver, and possibly someone missing. Now that is either going to sound like catnip or a complete horror show to you. If you do like games with lots of interacting systems and figuring out those interactions is fun, this could be a good fit for you. There's also some good interaction here for a heavy Euro. As trucks block movement, other players work on roads you want to build, and there's limited delivery spots. But all up, very much a heavy Euro for heavy Euro fans. The best thing about this game is loading the trucks up. Some find it fiddly, I find it adorable. However, the amount of iconography in the game is a lot to take in, especially as quite similar looking symbols can do things quite differently. I really would have liked a player aid for each player. And overall there's just a lot happening and a lot to keep track of, especially with delivery actions, bonus actions, and actions from upgraded cards all happening in one turn. For a different take on road building, try Maglev Metro. And for something faster and less complex, try Brass Birmingham. Autobahn. Your Pfaffenuggen may vary. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Backgammon in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 2 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. In one form or another, backgammon has existed for thousands of years. In it, you will roll dice and try to maneuver your pieces off the board before your opponent. This deluxe board was provided to me by Mastermind.com. To check out their deluxe gaming boards, follow the link in the description. The game ends once one player has removed all their checkers from the board. A match ends after an agreed upon number of points have been scored by one player over multiple games. Dice. Each turn you will roll dice and move your pieces. Push your luck. You can use the special doubling dice to gamble for more points. Player turn. Set the board up like this with players sitting on either side. We are playing the cream pieces. Our goal is to move all of our pieces clockwise to this corner of the board and then remove them. That area is called our home board. The black player's goal is the inverse of ours. You start with each player rolling a die. If the result is a tie, re-roll. The player with the highest roll goes first and then uses the result of these 2 dice for their first turn. Each die is used to move a checker that many spaces clockwise towards your home board. Here we use this 2 on this checker and move it. There are some limits to movement. For example, this 5 would move us to this area where black has stacked their checkers. If a space has more than 2 opposition markers, you cannot end a checker's movement there. We could, however, use the 5 on this piece, and that would let us move past both big stacks of black checkers. Black rolls 2 dice and goes next, and uses the 5 to move on top of the solitary cream checker we moved earlier. This is bad news for cream, and that checker is removed from the board and placed on the central bar. Black then uses the 1 to move onto a big stack, so they are safe from being bounced to the bar. Cream's first action on its next turn must be to bring that checker from the bar back onto the board from their starting point. Black then rolls a double 3. Doubles are a big deal as you can move 4 times the value shown on the dice. In this case, black moves 2 different groups of checkers 3 spaces to keep them protected. Now sometimes you cannot make a legal move. Here we have a double 6, which is normally amazing, but as we need to move our checker off the bar first, and black is in the 6th spot from our start point, we cannot take any actions and forfeit our turn. Once all your checkers are on your home board, you can start the end game. This is known as bearing off. You can move your checkers off the board with dice rolls, and excess amounts of movement don't matter here. For example, rolling this 5 and 6 just means you move your leftmost pair of checkers off the board. If you win the game, you score 1 point. If you win without your opponent getting any pieces off the board, you score 2. And if your opponent also has a piece left on the bar as well, you score 3. You may use the doubling dice at any point. You may offer it to your opponent. This acts as a score multiplier for the final score. Each time it is traded back, the multiplier increases. When offered, that player may choose to end the game instead and give their opponent half the value of the dice and points. Why would you like this game? Backgammon is an ancient game. When people talk about old classics, it's normally mentioned immediately after chess and go. And that's because it's a global game with a fan base in the millions, with a staggering amount of games played online each and every day. And that's because it's both simple and tactical, and expert players are very sharp at it. Some modern board gamers might look at it and call it a dice-chucking luckfest, and I suggest anyone who thinks that go take on some top-tier players online and get an education. For me, Backgammon is an excellent game about tactical area control and managing risk. Oh, and while you can get a fancy board like this one, it's free to play online, and a toy store set will cost you very, very little. Oh, best thing about this game is knocking someone else's checker back to the bar. It's super satisfying. However, the end game can sometimes suck. The things I like in this game are the positional battles in the early and the mid game, but in a close game in particular, bearing off just becomes a race, and as a result, close games can be a little frustrating. But this is part of an ongoing series of classic game recaps that started with Chess in 3 Minutes. And for a modern classic, check out Catan. Backgammon, not the bad kind of gammon. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Barcelona in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. Barcelona is looking to become a modern city, and you are one of its chief architects. Can you build the best roads, trams, buildings, and infrastructure? The game ends shortly after one of these 3 tracks is full. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get those from many sources. Action selection. Each turn you will take 2 or 3 of the following actions. Tile placement. There are many different types of tiles and tokens to place on the board. Player turn. Each player has a board with many different tiles and tokens on it. You will start with 2 people tokens pulled from the bag. These come in 3 colors. And on your turn, you will take these 2 tokens and stack them on an empty intersection on the board. You will then take the actions at the end of the streets of that intersection. There are 11 actions located around the board. Some locations have a gold cost to place in. These locations let you do 3 actions because there is a 3rd action on the diagonal street. This action lets you take one of your tiles from your board and place it here. You gain whatever your tile is placed on top of, and later tiles must be placed adjacent to existing ones. This action gives you 2 gold coins, and this one 1 fabric and 3 victory points. You can only store goods in areas that don't have tiles. This action lets you place an intersection, paying the cost above it. Gain any benefit on roads adjacent to where you place. If you place an intersection somewhere where roads cover the benefits already, you get nothing. And now, whenever any player places their people tokens on your intersection, you get benefits shown by the uncovered intersection spaces on your board. This action places 2 roads, and this one a double road, gaining you victory points and placement bonuses. This action lets you claim a tile from here, replacing it immediately. This tile goes on any of these top spaces, paying the shown cost. This one will score us 2 victory points for every intersection we have. This is modified by the cube beside it, and this action lets us pay the cost to move the cube up, meaning we will now get 6 victory points for every intersection we have. This action advances the Serta track, which is used in later scoring. And this action lets you pay gold for expensive building tokens with victory points and strong powers. The tram action lets you clear a spot on your board and place your tram and passenger down. That also lets you take that street's action again. On later moves, your tram can move 2 spaces and more if you have built roads. Then, if you can build a house, you must Dust. There are 4 types with different requirements shown here. Remove the tokens used to build from adjacent intersections, and place one of your control markers on the building. The 3 different square buildings grant different bonuses, and the higher level ones can be built on top of existing ones. Use tokens go on this track, and you score points equal to the lowest value showing, in this case 2. And here it would be 4. Once one of these rows is full, you score the goal at the top. Here 2 points for every double road you have. This is multiplied by your position on the Serta track, and then you reset that track. Finally, draw 2 more tokens from the bag and end your turn. Why would you like this game? I think there are 2 main reasons to get Barcelona, and they are the action selection system and the many and varied ways of scoring points. In my rules summary, I really only talked about the actions, and I didn't get into the specifics of all the way to score points, including all the bonus tiles, the Serta track story, and the Sagrada tiles. This opens up heaps of paths to victory, and I saw players win using trams heavily or not at all, going deep into the Sagrada tiles or not, buying buildings or not. Oh, and I really dig that you can use these tiles to rearrange the action selection locations. And it all makes for a game that would best suit heavy Eurogame fans who love having many ways to win and score points. The best thing about this game is the action selection system. It's really neat. However, the way the points for buildings ramp up in the end game made me feel like my early game scoring didn't matter that much. You can easily get 40 plus points from your last 3 buildings, and I found this limited my choices at the end, and not in a good way. The openness of the game can also be a weakness, especially at the start of the game where you can feel quite directionless. For a different take on action selection, try Taltum, and for something less complex, try the Castles of Burgundy. Barcelona, it's one very busy city. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Betrayal at House on the Hill, 3rd edition, in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 3 to 6 players, playing time is medium, and it's a reasonably simple game. You are exploring a haunted house. Everything starts off normal, but you begin finding rooms with sinister purposes and seeing strange omens. Then, suddenly, the haunt begins. Once the haunt is triggered, you will have a second setup phase as the full scenario rules are revealed. Each scenario will have a different win condition, but in general, dropping to 0 health will be bad for you. Tile placement. As you explore the house, you will place new room tiles. Card management. There are multiple different types of cards to manage. Dice. This game uses dice with values 0, 1, and 2. Player turn. There are 6 playable characters and each is double-sided. Pick the one you want to play, take their dial and set their trackers to mark the green numbers for each stat. Then choose one of the scenario starter cards. Set up the starting tiles of all players at the entrance and the upper floor landing to one side. On your turn, you can move your character's speed, but you stop your movement if you move through a doorway to an unexplored part of the house. Check the tile stack. We are on the ground floor, and this tile says upper or basement, so we bury that tile to the bottom of the stack. The next one says upper or ground. We are on the ground floor, so we flip it over and place it. This tile has an event card symbol on it, so we draw an event card and resolve it. It's asking us to make a might roll, so we grab our character and check their might score and roll that many dice. We then check the event card for the rolled outcome. The next player moves into the guest quarters and then reveals a new tile. This tile has an item marker on it. Take that card to your hand. You can now use it at any time. The next player moves down the hallway to the staircase and goes to the upper landing, because those 2 tiles are connected. They move off into a room in the upper section. This room has the omen marker, so we draw an omen card. We keep a hold of the omen card. Also note that this card is asking us to make a haunt roll. A haunt roll uses 1 die for every omen card that has been revealed so far in the game. If you ever roll 5 or more on this roll, the haunt begins. And when it does, flip over the scenario card and cross-reference it with the last omen drawn. This tells you who is the traitor and what pages in each of the books the traitor and other survivors should turn to. Each haunt is different and may require special tokens or have weird ways to win it. Some are also free-for-alls with no traitor player. It's very hard to understate just how much the haunt will change the game. You may trade items with other players in the same room as you, and in many haunts you'll be able to attack other players. Roll your might score and dice and compare scores, with the loser taking the margin of the loss and damage to their stats. A final note, the basement starts off inaccessible and can only be accessed through rooms like the laundry chute, but once you are in the basement, you may explore freely. Why would you like this game? The first time I played Betrayal at House on the Hill 1st edition was nearly 20 years ago, and a group was shrunk down and had to escape a haunted house using a model plane while the house cats hunted us. It was a memorable gaming experience, but one you won't have here, as 3rd edition contains entirely new haunts, which I find really cool, as the game takes the original core and not only tightens the rules up, but gives you completely new content. And there's a heap of events and items, all of which draw on classic horror tropes. There's also a couple of expansions for the game out already, including this Christmas themed one. But ultimately, this is a game you play for the chaos and silliness it brings, and it's one I mostly recommend for groups who can embrace that silly factor. The best thing about this game is the different haunts. You never know what to expect. However, I've said it for nearly 20 years, the first half of the game is largely meaningless, and the real game kicks off when the haunt does. So in many ways, you should consider it a short short game with one heck of a lot of cooperative setup. For a different take on haunted houses, try Mansions of Madness. And for the fantasy version, try Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. Betrayal at House on the Hill. It's a game of 1/2. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Books of Time in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. In Books of Time, you are creating a civilization, not through war or conversion or annexation or colonization. You are creating one through the written word as your society develops books about trade, science, and industry. The game lasts for 15 full rounds, which is tracked using this book. Turn the page after each turn. The winner is the player at the end of the game with the most victory points. Action selection. On each of your 15 turns in the game, you will take one of these actions. Drafting. You will select pages for your history books from the face-up display. Set collection. Collecting sets of pages for your books is the key to winning. Player turn. The game revolves around these 3 books for each player, and they should be open unless you are otherwise instructed. You will also have a unique set of 3 objective tiles. To score green tiles, you need pages with different symbols. For red pages, it's sets of different symbols, and for yellow pages, symbols placed in a certain order in the book. You'll also start with some book pages on your own personal track. On your turn, you may take one of 6 possible actions. The first action is to draw 2 of the 4 face-up cards in the display or from the deck. Replace each card after it is drawn. These go onto your personal track one at a time and move the other cards right. Note that these cards are only moved right if they are pushed by a new card. The second action is to write pages into your book. Each page costs the pen and paper amounts shown below it. Folders are wildcards that count as both pen and paper. Open the matching color book and unclip its binder. Then place each page in one at a time and reclip the binder. Note the pages must always match the color of the book, so these 2 pages could not go into the green book. When you add a new page to your book, gain the resources shown here. For both these pages that we added, that was 1 pen. The third action is to activate both pages in one book. The left page here gives us resources and a victory point, and the right page lets us spend pens for paper. You then turn that book's page over to the next page. If a book ever reaches its last page and has to be turned again, reopen it to its first page. The fourth action is to close a book. Here you place a marker to the book and then turn the pages right, claiming the bonus shown at the bottom of each page that you turn. The deeper into a book you are, the more rewards you will get. Then open the book to its first page. The fifth action is to turn 1 page in up to 3 books, again claiming the page turning bonus at the bottom. And the final main action is to advance on the main board. Here you select your player marker and move up one of these tracks, paying the cost on the far right. You can either gain the reward shown or choose to remove one of your victory point tiles, and then claim the bonus on the back of the tile. This means you are trying to score a more difficult tile for more points. Additionally, before or after you take your main action, you may do one of the actions shown on the central book. And once all players are done, turn that central books page. Why would you like this game? Books of Time is something a little different, and its book-based mechanics are very fresh and intriguing, and it's going to be that point of difference that first catches your eye about the game. But once you get past that initial shock, this is very much a drafting and set collection optimization game, and its longevity and replayability will entirely depend on whether that's the sort of game you enjoy or not. The way the books are structured does allow for some different and interesting actions, and it will take you a little while to get the hang of the pacing of the game. I also really like the central book and how it has different actions you can select each turn. The best thing about this game is how the book format allowed it to explore some new ideas. It's unique. However, the books take a bit of getting used to, and some players found them awkward and cumbersome to use, and the iconography isn't the most user-friendly either. But probably my biggest issue is while the books are a cool idea, I just don't feel the theme of building a civilization comes through at all. The pages might as well have just been their icons for all it mattered to me. For a different drafting civilization game, try 7 Wonders. And for a different take on making books, try Scholars of the South Tigris. Books of Time. I want to see more of this bookmaking mechanic. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Brazil Imperial in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a very basic solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. The vast Amazon and its surrounding lands is not yet a nation state, but many colonial powers are invested in its future, as are the locals. Can you guide the creation of Brazil? The game ends shortly after one player has completed a goal from each of the 3 eras in sequence. The winner is the player with the most points at that time, and you get points from loads of sources. Just look for the laurels. Area control. Controlling tiles give you bonuses and let you build stuff. Action selection. Each turn you will take 1 action from the 7 available action windows. Player turn. The game has 4 basic resources: wood, sugar, coffee, and cotton. Gold can be used as any of these 4, and science can be used as all 6 resource types. Resources are frequently on the board when you spend them. Here we spend 2 gold. Each player takes a player board, places their palaces on the right, manufacturing goods on the matching slots, and troops on the left. You then select one of your leader tiles, with the Brazil faction having fortitude choose from. Each turn you will place your action marker in one of these windows to show you are taking that action. The first action is deploy. We choose to deploy our monarch, paying 2 gold. We place our monarch at our capital. After each action you may take a bonus movement below it. Here that is to move 1 unit to our capital. And you may always take a single movement after each action. Here our monarch moves. The painting action lets you take one of the paintings for its ongoing bonuses. Pay the cost and replace the painting card with a new one. The build action lets you build a new tile adjacent to existing ones. Each hex is limited in what can be built there. This is a gold hex, so we build a gold building, paying its building cost. We then place the resources shown on the tile on it. The renovate action lets you either replenish one building by restocking it to its original resources, or you can flip the building over to its other side and place new resources on it. The manufacture action lets you pay resources to move one of these markers to the matching window below. That gives you a benefit each and every time you take that action. Here that makes manufacturing cost 1 less resource. The harbor action lets you gain a resource or a powerful gold card if upgraded. And finally, the trade action lets you trade resources, gold and science. A few notes. Moving a unit into a question mark tile reveals it and can grant bonuses and challenges. After you complete a mission card, place your current era action token underneath any action. You get a bonus taking that action from now on. You also get to place one of your point scoring palaces on the board. Cities have unique costs and must be built where your monarch is, and can be outside of your network. Finally, combat is decided by the strength of the units involved, the defender's tile value, and painting and combat cards. All units' victory point values are their strengths. Winning a combat lets you occupy that space, but if your troops move away, control will revert to the player who built it. Removed troops can be redeployed later without paying their recruitment costs. Why would you like this game? Brazil features a grab bag of game mechanisms, but is fundamentally an action selection game, where you take one of those 7 actions each turn. And I think you'll get the most out of the game if you treat it as an action optimization game, trying to wring the most out of each action you take. The mix of building, exploring, marching armies about, and developing gold card technologies will appeal to people who like classic Civ games too. It feels like a sandbox game that happens to have other players in it. The painting cards are very striking, and I love the art direction too. There's also a supplemental history book that gives detail about each card's background. All up, a solid Civ style game with less direct conflict than most. The best thing about this game is the renovate action. I like double-sided buildings, and this idea could be pushed more. However, combat is not conquest in this game, and if you pick it up looking for lots of fights, you may be disappointed. And generally, it's a Euro optimization game, not a game of conquest. And as a note, I know very little about the history of Brazil. I have no idea if this game depicts it well at all. For a similar game in a fictional world, try Scythe. And for a more generic Civilization game, try Civilization: A New Dawn. Brazil. By the way, this guy is not this guy. And if you enjoyed this video, kia ora koutou and welcome to Bristol 1350 in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 9 players, playing time is short to medium, and it's a pretty simple game. The Black Death has arrived at Bristol, and that's your cue to get the hell out of the city as soon as possible. Can you ride that apple cart all the way out of town to escape the dreaded plague? The game ends with a win if you make it to the end of the map and escape without any member of your cart having the plague. Alternatively, you can win as a plague bearer if no cart escapes without infection. Card management. There are symptom and remedy cards for you to manage. Variable player powers. Each character has a special power. Dice. These dice determine how the cards move and if the plague spreads. Player turn. Each player selects one of the character cards. If you have no new players, flip the cards over to its variable player power side. Also grab the matching colored pawn. Reference the number of players on this chart. It will show you how many players to put in each card and how many remedy cards to start with. If you are playing with less than 4 players, there are also special rules for dummy players. We're setting up an 8-player game, so randomly draw the pawns from the bag and place them in this order. This is each player's start position. Later on in the game, if the cards occupy the same space, the birch car is considered to be in the front at all times, and the oak one at the back. Take all the bubo cards out of the symptom deck, shuffle the remainder, and deal each player 2 cards. If they get 2 chill cards, they reveal them, discard them, and draw again. The reason for that is that at any point in the game, if you have a total value of 6 or more on your 2 symptom cards, you are infected, and you can only win by preventing all healthy players from escaping the city. You stay infected even if the cards you're holding drop below 6. Start each round by rolling the 6 dice. Any player can do this, but starting with the player in the front of the front cart and proceeding clockwise, each player may take one of the following actions. You may re-roll up to 2 dice. Dice results are not normally locked until after all players have acted. You can draw a remedy card, and each card has 2 possible effects on it, and you can play them at the appropriate time. You can push to the front of the cart you are in. You can kick someone off the cart if you are ahead of them. They fall behind and get in the next cart with a space in it. And you can dash to the cart ahead of you, either taking an empty space or swapping places with the player ahead. If you kick a player off the last cart, they are eliminated. But if they were healthy, the kicker is also eliminated. And if you are playing with them, each player may use their special action. Once all actions are done, move the cards ahead one space for each die matching that card's color. Then if any card has 2 rat symbols, you run a mingle. Here each player takes their 2 symptom cards, which are still secret, and adds them to a freshly drawn card in the middle. Shuffle those all together and then deal 2 cards to each player. Anyone who now has 6 symptom value or higher now has the plague. Roll the dice and start a new turn. Why would you like this game? Bristol 1350 is a darkly humorous and vicious little game of social manipulation, mad hijinks, and pushing your friends off of carts. The core gameplay and rules are refreshingly simple, and you could easily treat this as a party game. But with the different remedy cards and all their effects, plus the player powers that are available to you, there's just enough happening here to make it a good game as well. And the whole thing packs away into a small and tasteful bookcase, making it very portable. This game is very group dependent and therefore would best suit a largest group of people who just want to have a quick and fun game where you get to mess around with each other. The best thing about this game is the horror of realizing you may be the only well person left in the game. However, this is a game that works best with more players, and although it's playable solo, I think you miss out on the real fun there. And the game is cursed. On 3 occasions I have gotten it out with the intent to review it in the past, and 3 times I have gotten ill afterwards. This time I reviewed it while I was already sick. Take that, game! And for a different take on social manipulation, try The Resistance. And for a more complex game of survival and betrayal, try Unfathomable. Bristol 1350. It's a bit like this.
9pence.
I'm not dead.
What?
Nothing. Here's your 9pence. I'm not dead.
Here. He says he's not dead.
Yes, he is.
Kia ora koutou and welcome to Bullet Heart in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. I'm honestly not really sure what's going on in Bullet Heart. All I know is you are anime heroines and there's a ton of bullets flying around. Can you survive the onslaught? When a bullet reaches the bottom of your board, it is placed here, doing damage. A player is eliminated once all heart spaces are covered with bullets. The winner is the last player left standing. Variable player powers. Each character has unique powers and cards. Card management. You will have a deck of pattern cards to manage. Real time. This game is played with a timer. Player turn. Grab your heroine's boards and her matching action board and place a generic sight board in between them. Put your power token on the highest amount on the power track. Then shuffle your pattern cards and deal yourself 3 face up. Each character has unique powers, and this character's power is to have an extra pattern available. Randomly take 10 bullet tokens from the central bag and place them into your personal bag. This bag is called your current. In the normal game, you'll have to finish placing and dealing with your current within 3 minutes. Draw 1 token from your current at a time and place them on your sideboard. Each of the 5 columns has a color. Place the bullet that many spaces down from the top of the matching column equal to its value. If a space is already occupied by another bullet, continue moving the bullet downwards without counting that space. This results in this pink 4 almost traveling right to the bottom in 1 move. Now let's place some more bullets down and then try to clear some. At any time we can spend power to use our abilities on the action board. We spend 1 power to move the red bullet 1 space down and repeat that process with the green bullet. We now have a pattern of bullet tokens that match one of our pattern cards. The top 2 bullets have even values and the other 3 in this pattern are marked with the explosion symbol. That means we remove those from our board. We then spend more energy to move a bunch of times in order to establish this pattern, which helps us clear all those pink bullets that were looking dangerous. Once you use a pattern, it is discarded. Some bullets have these star symbols on them. If you remove a bullet like that, trigger your star powers. Here, that would gain us 1 action point. Once your turn is finished, you can claim one of the central action tokens and add it to your board. And when the round is over, take all the tokens you removed this round, turn them over, and give them to the player to your left. You will in turn gain the player from the right's tokens to your current. Then add more tokens based on the intensity track to your current, which goes up each round and after each player is defeated. Then redraw patterns up to your hand size, and it's time for the next round. Why would you like this game? Bullet Heart is something that's quite different, a real-time puzzle game that plays incredibly quickly and gets tense even faster. And I think this is a game that definitely won't be for everyone, but the people it is for will have been waiting for this exact game for a very long time. And that's because of its fast arcade style that legitimately pushes you to make a lot of decisions in an incredibly compressed time frame. It's all about seeing those patterns emerge, managing your limited resources and time, and maximizing what you can blow up. And there's a couple of additional play modes, including solo, team, and boss mode. All up, a fascinating game, but not a general recommendation. The best thing about this game is the degree of asymmetry in the characters. They really do feel quite different. However, Real-time games are not for everyone and can be deeply confusing and frustrating when you have rules issues. I suggest not playing real-time to start with. And real-time games like this need a high degree of trust and people who can accept when they make a bad move under pressure. Not everyone is that honest, while some folks just find this game so very stressful. For a similar concept in a solo game, try Under Falling Skies. And for a different take on patterns, try Noctiluca. Bullet Heart. It's an actual 3-minute board game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Calico in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. In Calico, you are assembling the most wonderful and coziest quilt possible. And if your quilt is super cozy, well then all the neighborhood cats will turn up to nap on it. The game ends once all players have completed their player boards by placing tiles on them. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get these from 3 mission tiles on the board, as well as additional points from collecting sets shown with buttons and cats. Tile placement. Each turn you will place 1 tile on the board. Set collection. Completing sets on the board will get you extra points. Drafting. You will draft replacement tiles from the central display of 3. Player turn. Each and every tile in Calico consists of a colour and a pattern. At the top we have 1 pattern on all 6 colours, and at the bottom all patterns on 1 colour. Both pieces of information on a tile are important for scoring points. There are 5 double-sided cat boards to choose from. Pick 3 of them and randomly assign the black and white pattern tiles to them. This shows how you will score points from patterns. For example, 3 striped tiles in a row is 3 points. You will have 2 tiles in your hand. Each turn you will place one and then draw one of the 3 tiles in the middle to hand, replacing it afterwards. But where do you place these tiles? Well, in each game you'll have 3 objective tiles. Tiles with letters on them denote collecting sets. This one wants triples in colours and patterns, so this here works to score the points shown in the yellow circle. However, the triples do not need to be touching, nor do they need to be identical tiles. This arrangement here still scores maximum points, and if you only have patterns but not the colours, you only score the blue circle amount in points. The same is true if you have the colours but not the patterns. This scoring tile works in a similar fashion, but wants 3 pairs of patterns and colours. Here, no 6 tiles are the same, but it still meets its requirement for maximum points, by having 3 pairs of patterns and colours. The middle tile wants no repeats of colour or pattern. It wants all 6 for maximum points. Only placing non-repeating patterns or colours gets you the lower points value. If you place 3 of a colour in a row, place a colour button on the board. This is worth 3 points. Note that the partial tiles at the edge of the board count. Also, this is 3 striped tiles in a row, and based on our cat scoring, that's another 3 points. Extending this line does not get any more points later on. If you place 1 of each of the 6 colour buttons, you gain a bonus rainbow button. It's also worth 3 points. Keep playing until all tiles are placed. Why would you like this game? If I had $1 for every cat-themed game I've played with fundamentally simple rules that turns my brain into mush with analysis paralysis every time I play it, I'd have $2. Which is not a lot of money, but it's happened twice. And the second game is Calico, a game that you look at and go, wow, this seems simple. And then halfway through your first game, you are screaming inside about where to place this damned useless tile. Drafting in many games can lead to, no, I wanted that moment. But in Calico it seems more pronounced, as someone unknowingly drafts the last tile you need to complete that big 15-point objective. So it is that perfect combination of easy to teach, difficult to master, and it gives brain aches that will be welcome to serious gamers and families alike. The best thing about this game is the moment where you go, I can't win all these objectives. How do I salvage this game? However, if seeing tiles you want get drafted out from under you is upsetting, this game will be the worst, because Calico is frustrating and painful and annoying, but that's also why it's good. The other cat game that hurts my brain is Isle of Cats, and for a similar amount of brain melting, try Noctiluca. And finally, for a more complex game using similar concept, try Azul Queen's Garden. Calico, adorably frustrating gold medal game. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Catan in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 2 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. Welcome to Catan, a geometrically pleasing and conveniently unpopulated island for you to settle. Can you build the most settlements, the longest road, and the biggest army on your way to victory? The game ends as soon as one player gains 10 victory points. You get 1 victory point for a settlement, 2 for a city, and extra points from cards and objectives. Dice. A dice roll determines which regions generate resources each turn. Network building. You will build a network of roads and settlements. Trading. Yes, you can trade wood for sheep. Player turn. For your first games, I strongly recommend using the beginner's setup as shown here. Each player will have 2 settlements with 1 road off each. There are 5 different regions and each generates a different resource. At the start of your turn, roll the 2 dice. Based on what you roll, those regions will generate resources. Here that is the mountain and the forest marked with the 3 icon. Each player collects resources for each building they have on its corners. There is one white settlement on the 3 woods, so the white player gets 1 wood. There are 2 blue settlements by the mountain and 1 orange city, so both blue and orange get 2 ore each. As the dice roll is 2 6-sided dice, rolls of 6 and 8 are far more common. This frequency is noted on each number with the dots underneath. If you roll a 7, you can then move the robber, place it in any region, then any players with more than 7 cards in hand discard half of them. Then you may take 1 card from a player with a building on that tile. You may then trade, either with other players, or if you have built a port, you can trade based on what is shown on that port icon. Also, at any time you may trade 4 of a card for 1 of another, regardless of players or ports. Then you may build. Roads cost 1 clay and 1 wood and must extend an existing network. If you have at least 5 segments and the longest road, claim this victory tile. Only 1 road can exist on each segment, so this is an illegal placement. But settlements, which can be built on an intersection for 1 of each resource card, can break a road. Cities cost 3 ore and 2 grain and upgrade a settlement. Cities are worth 2 victory points and get double resources. You can also buy development cards. Development cards are either one-off powers, victory points, or knights. Knights are played to the table to move the robber to another region. If you have at least 3 and have the most knights, claim the largest army marker. For later games, you can experiment with variable map setups. Why would you like this game? I first played Catan back in the late 90s and I wasn't particularly impressed with it. Decades later and after a gazillion copies sold, I still find it somewhat uninspiring. But that's because I was never the target audience for the game. Catan holds a special place in so many gamers' hearts because it was the game that got them into hobby gaming. And the reason it's got so many people into hobby gaming is its phenomenally simple yet reasonably deep gameplay. Roll dice, get stuff, build stuff. But then there's also building up a tableau of development cards, moving the robber around, snaking your road around, nabbing ports, and a bunch of other little gameplay wrinkles. And the potential swing back with the longest road and biggest army cards keeps the game tense. All up, Catan deserves its spot as the most successful Foundation game ever made and is suitable to practically anyone. Oh, best thing about this game is getting a development card yelling, "Road building, suckers!" taking the longest road card and winning. However, 2 standout negatives for Catan. Trading can make and break the game, and a poor social contract at the table can lead to king-making, collusion, and bullying. And the other is that with variable setups, you can almost call a victory after the initial setup is done in some cases. Like the network building in Catan, you could try Power Grid. And if the negotiation part appeals, check out Chinatown. Catan owes Gamma Orders a big thank you. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Circadian's Chaos Order in about 3 minutes, review copy used. There is no solo mode, it's a game for 2 to 5 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. War is coming, and you are the leader of your people, one of the tribes of locals to this planet, or one of the invaders, the Circadians from Terra, or their rogue AI. Only one faction can secure the relics and win the day. The game ends if a player completes their own personal victory track, or if at the end of a round, one player controls all the remaining relics on the board. Variable player powers. Each faction has unique rules, upgrades, and ways to win. Area control. Controlling regions gives you advantages in the game. Player turn. Each player takes and reads their reference card. This tells you how to set up your base, your special rules, and how you win. The round begins with the first player selecting one of their pricing tokens. They then place it on one of the 5 action spaces. Each other player then follows until all actions are priced. The player who has priced an action does it for free. Every other player in turn order decides if they will pay to take the action. The number of power on the left of the token goes to the pricing player, and the number on the right to the bank. You then take the action at the top row of where your cube is currently. This symbol means to advance on any tech track. We advance here and claim the reward in the middle space. We can then do the bottom action to advance again by spending 2 minerals. Build allows you to place buildings onto the board or place foundations down. Each building needs a foundation to place it on, and doing so will also grant bonuses. Having buildings on the board uncovers spots on your player board. So now here we would get 7 power income at the end of the turn. The 3 different building types grant different bonuses and income. Harvest gives you the power shown on the top row, plus each cog is a region bonus you can mine. Here our 2 foundries mine 2 power and 1 combat card. Recruit grants you the number shown in recruit actions. 3 actions here move these 3 troops to available, and the final action could move 1 from here to here, or spend power to move it straight to available. New troops are placed in your stronghold. The bottom action here is to pay to place a leader. Our move here lets us move 3 times. So here purple moves all its forces into the first monolith. Troops pin other players, so here blue could not move, and only one red is free to move away. The bottom action here is to flip and upgrade a leader. In combat you have 1 strength for each troop. Outposts grant extra strength for the defender, and leaders also contribute. These 3 values are what matter in combat. The fist determines strength and who wins, the others are losses inflicted and losses prevented. Each player takes a combat wheel and it modifies these values. you can play a card to modify that further. Use powerful attacks that cost minerals to roll the bonus dice, or retreat. After all combat is done, gain income based on the regions you control. The rightmost scores here, flip and upgrade your faction attribute cards. Then the player holding this turn's relic takes it, places it on their board, and gains the bonuses shown. Why would you like this game? Chaos Order is a very busy game with a lot happening, and that busyness is compounded by staggering levels of asymmetry between the factions. Learning all your own faction stuff takes long enough, let alone learning all of them. But herein lies the strength of the game. It was designed to be played repeatedly, and as players learn the ins and outs of the factions and the unique timing of pacing of the game, the overall gameplay will improve around the table. And as a result, this is a game that will continue to show you new wrinkles and quirks after many plays. I would recommend it for a regular group that likes high conflict games with a high skill ceiling. The best thing about this game is how it can only go for 6 turns, and those relic regions become so fought over in the late game. However, this is not a game to be played once, and it's not for people who are uncomfortable with conflict and complexity. In many ways, it's a game that's ethos is from a different era, the era of Dune and Cosmic Encounter. It makes demands of its players to become better players. Chaos Order has more important decisions in less time than Twilight Imperium 4, and it strongly stacks up against a game like Root. Circadian's Chaos Order. Cute animal retheme when? Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Citadels in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 8 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. In Citadels, you are trying to build up your city to be the best and brightest of them all. Can you manage dealings with the local criminals, nobles, merchants, and clergy better than anyone else? The game ends the round one player completes the 8th building in their city. The winner is the player with the most points, the majority of which is the gold value of your buildings. Card management. There are building cards and character cards to manage in this game. Drafting. Each turn you will draft a character card in secret. Set collection. Collecting all 5 colors or multiple cards of one color has benefits. Player turn. Each player starts with a hand of 4 random buildings and 2 gold coins. Keep your hand of building cards secret from the other players. Randomly determine a first player for the first round and give them the crown. It is now time to draft character cards, and this has slightly different rules for each player count. We will do a 4-player game here. First, shuffle the cards and deal 1 face down into the middle of the table, then deal 2 face up in the middle of the table. This leaves the first player with a hand of 5 cards, 1 more than the number of players. They select 1 card to take and place it in front of them face down so no one else can see it. The turn continues with each player picking a card and then passing the remainder left until the last player picks a card and places the unselected final character face down in the middle of the table. Then players reveal their characters one at a time and take their turns in order. When it is your time to act, you may either collect 2 coins from the bank or draw 2 cards and choose 1 to keep and 1 to put at the bottom of the deck. As we already have a manor in our city and you cannot have duplicates, we keep the market. You may then build 1 building paying its cost, shown in its top left in gold coins. Some unusual buildings cost is shown like this and is less than its total victory point value. Now back to the character powers. If the assassin is picked, they select a token showing another character. The thief player acts second and then selects one of the other characters. If later in the round these characters act, the assassin's target's turn is immediately over, while the thief's target must give the thief player all of their gold. The magician player either discards their hand to draw replacements or swaps their hand of cards with another player. The king gets 1 gold per yellow building they control and the first player marker for next turn. The bishop gets 1 gold per blue building they control and cannot be targeted by the warlord. The merchant gets 1 gold per green building and a bonus gold when they take their action. The architect can draw 2 extra cards and build up to 3 districts in 1 turn. And the warlord gets 1 gold per red building and can spend gold to blow up other players' buildings. Unless, of course, that player is the bishop. Once all cards are resolved, it is a new turn, starting with a player with a crown selecting roles again. Why would you like this game? Citadels is 23 years old at the time of this review, and my copy of the game is almost 20 years old and pretty worn out. It's been re-released and updated over the years with new art and additional characters, and this version of the game is now known as Citadel's Classic. Citadel's strength is its social deduction and figuring out what role to take that doesn't end with you being robbed or murdered. The game is also short enough that you can blast through around in 30 minutes and either play it again or move on to something else. I'd not really recommend it as a family game as it is a bit confrontational, but for anyone who likes a bit of backstabbing and viciousness in their games, it is ideal. The best thing about this game is when the assassin has a 50-50 chance of getting you and they still miss. However, while the game says 2 to 8 players, it's somewhat trash except at 4 to 6 players. The assassin and the thief are both pretty harsh on other players, and some people might get trapped in a revenge cycle, and you don't actually win the game by picking the assassin every time. This is also the game I've played where I have most frequently seen visceral and angry reactions from players. Be warned. For a more directly confrontational game, try Small World. And for something a smidgen less nasty, try Mission Red Planet. Citadels, the C word of board gaming. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Darkside Rising in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. In a galaxy far, far away, the Galactic Empire is tightening its grip on millions of star systems, and you are fighting to stop them. In the background, they're constructing the ultimate terror weapon. Can you defeat them before the Death Star comes online? The game ends in a victory if all players manage to defeat no less than 7 enemy cards. All players lose if all 6 parts of the Death Star become operational, or if the Empire defeats 10 total rebels, or if 1 player loses their last rebel. Dice. This game has a bunch of different dice to manage. Card management. Your enemies and allies are represented by different cards. Engine building. Cards will have synergies, and building cards that work well together is the key to winning. Player turn. Each player selects one of the 4 starting crews with their base of operations and leader. Grab your matching deployment token and note your team ability at the bottom of your base. Each base has a unique power. Place Vader in the middle of the table and 9 cards around them. These cards are in groups of 3 in 3 different sectors. Start your turn by placing your deployment marker on the sector you want to interact with this turn. Then roll the Vader dice. If you roll right or left, Vader moves to that sector from his current position. He then damages each rebel card in that sector by placing a red cube on them. Hero cards are defeated if they take too many hits. You would then also activate any enemies in the sector. And if Vader rolls this side, he stays still and attacks that region, but all enemies in all regions activate. And he rolls this symbol, he stays still and attacks. And he also rolls the Death Star dice twice. Normally, after rolling the Vader dice, you will roll the Death Star dice once. Add a yellow cube to the area matching the die roll. If that area fills up, remove the cubes and flip that component over. Now whenever you roll that color in later turns, that special action takes place. Once that is done, it is the player turn, and you will gain dice shown on your base, plus any extras from card powers. Here Leia grants us an extra die if we have another purple rebel in our squad, so let's include General Dodonna in this example and gain an extra black die. You can roll your dice and start assigning them to cards. Remember to check your special abilities too, as Al's gets us an alliance token here. Here Bail Organa needs 3 of this symbol and 1 other to recruit, so we place a total of 3 diplomacy icons on him. We then roll the unassigned dice and must assign at least 1 more dice before rolling a 3rd and final time. Card abilities like this can also be used. We've assigned enough dice to Bail Organa to recruit him to our squad, but note that he keeps the damage on him. We're 1 die short of hurting Thrawn here, but luckily our alliance token has that dice symbol on it, so we use that to damage Thrawn. You gain an alliance token each time you damage an enemy, but an enemy like Thrawn takes many hits over many turns to defeat. Finally, draw replacements for any cards that were defeated or recruited this round. Why would you like this game? If this game looks oddly familiar to you, you might have played one of its other incarnations, including Marvel, DC, Avatar, and even SpongeBob versions. And the reason for that is the core system here is simple and family friendly. The AI uses a dice system instead of card flips, which keeps the complexity down. And the slowly ramping up powers on the Death Star board keep pace with the players creating combos on their own board, meaning the game accelerates in its endgame. And this all combines to make a simple to learn yet engaging co-op game, but I think being a fan of the IP will really help. The best thing about this game is clearly the giant Darth Vader figure in the middle of the table. However, this is a by the numbers co-op that doesn't really do anything mechanically new or interesting. It's inoffensive and fine, but there's also a reason it can be reskinned to just about any IP you can imagine. For another simple co-op, try Marvel United, and for something a bit heavier, try The Reckoners. Darkside Rising. I'm surprised there's no Horus Rising yet. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Dawn of Ulos in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 5 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. You are the gods of Ulos, and you are making wagers with the other gods on the fate of the mortals in the world below you. Can you manipulate those mortals to become the most favored god? The game ends after a second faction reaches the end of this track and becomes legendary, or if this pile of terrain tokens runs out. The winner is the player with the most points, and points are your money in the game. Tile placement. Each turn you'll place a tile on the board and maybe a camp. Stocks. You can invest in each faction like they are stocks in a market. Card management. Each faction card has 3 different uses. Player turn. Choose one of the player boards. These have cosmetic differences only. Then take 3 terrain tiles that you can look but keep secret from the other players, as well as 25 favor, which is both money and victory points. Take the 10 stacks of cards, choose 5 of them to be in the game, and place their matching camp figures below them. Then place the faction track icons on this track on the lost space. Each faction has a camp model. and they are different shaped 3-tile pieces showing the faction and its 2 preferred terrain types. This information is repeated on their faction card along with their special card ability. Each turn you will choose one of your 3 terrain tiles and place it onto the board in a magic space. For your first action, you must place the tile in such a way that it brings a camp into play over a purple rift token. Move the faction on the tracker from lost to 0 as their camp is on the board, but they have no additional territory. Camps can be built close or far away from each other, and after one round, our board looks like this. When you place a tile adjacent to a camp, check its favorite terrain. Increase that faction on this track for each matching favored terrain. For here, that's 1 for forest. For the Ratman here, it's 2, 1 for each desert. After placing your tile, you may choose to buy up to 3 cards, but cannot buy cards for the lost factions. The cost is based on the fist value below their marker. You can buy in any combination, but here we get 3 goblins for 9 favor. Instead of buying cards, you can play one. Follow the instructions in the text box, gain favor equal to the spores below their tracker icon, and then discard the card. After you have placed a tile and either purchased or played a card, draw a replacement terrain tile at random. If you would place a tile that would link 2 groups, place it face down and resolve combat. A faction's strength is its fist value, and every single player can play cards into this battle. Do that secretly and then reveal them at once. Cards from factions not in the battle are bluffs and are returned to hand. The other cards add 1 fist each to their side. In turn order, players can play 1 combat card from their hand and resolve its effect. The winner is the faction with the highest strength. Then players must discard at least half their committed cards, gaining spoils for them. The loser's camp is removed and the active player gains the rift token. Adjust the territory track based on the new favored terrain type of this unified group and put the loser in the lost bin. Note that at the end of the game, each card is worth its strength in victory points. Why would you like this game? After reading the rules, I had little idea of how this one would play, and well, Dawn of Ulos turned out to be a delight. A fascinating game where you play disconnected god, wagering the outcomes of massive wars. It's the grimiest, most savage game I've played in a long time, and that's what makes it wonderful. As one faction rises and falls, the various gods make wagers and bets that swell their victory point pools. And in its own weird way, it's the most dynamic stock market game I've played. The camps are really nice and will look pretty damn cool once painted up. I'd recommend it for groups who love cutthroat play and massive reversals of fortune. The best thing about this game is watching stock market tropes play out. Invest in goblins now! However, you cannot get emotionally attached to any faction in this game, because what goes up does go down. And therefore this is a game for people who are quite resilient and can handle those sudden reversals. For a more directly confrontational game, try Small World. And for something with similar reversals, try Tigris and Euphrates. Dawn of Ulos. It's Small World meets 18xx. Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Doctor Who Nemesis in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. You are the Daleks, Cybermen, Weeping Angels, or the Master, and your plans to control the universe are hindered by one individual, the Doctor. Can you scheme your way to victory? The game ends immediately once one player completes one of their personal Nemesis schemes. It also ends immediately if they complete a scheme on a Doctor character they have played, or any Doctor scheme played by any player for that matter. Action selection. Each turn you will move your control marker and take the action shown beside it. Card management. You have both Nemesis and hero cards to play and manage. Variable player powers. Each Nemesis has unique powers and unique cards. Player turn. Choose your Nemesis and which side of their board to play. Take all the Nemesis cards of the main faction and then the 5 bonus cards representing the side of the board you are playing. Then draw 2 Doctor tokens at random and collect the 4 hero cards for each matching Doctor. Shuffle these all together to form your deck of cards and then draw 5 of them. Here we will play as the Master. Next, populate our regions with some annoying cards played by our opponents. First, we must move our marker to one of the 3 other locations. We move to Traken, where the Cyberman player has deployed a legion. Next is the minion phase, where we can play a minion to one of those 4 locations. You can also use this phase to move a minion to any location, including another player's board. Next is the conflict phase, which is optional, but we choose to fight here. Minion strengths are in the bottom right, and then each player blind bids power tokens, each of which adds 1 strength. Players can also play instant conflict cards, and this one gives us 2 more strength, and then finally, each player rolls a dice and totals it up. This would be a tie, which is normally no effect, but the Master gets +1 to combat rolls and wins, discarding the opponent's cards. Conflicts can include multiple opponents, and heroes win the conflict if their total is higher than all the human players. If you defeat a Doctor in combat, place him at the top of your board. One reason to eliminate enemies on your board is you can now take the 2 actions at your location. If there are any opponents there, you must miss 1 action, and if a Doctor is there, you must miss both. Here we play a hero card that is a scheme to the top of our board. This contains another way for players to win. And then we play a constant card to the bottom of our board that provides an ongoing effect, as well as a one-off moment card. End your turn by doing end step actions, discarding down to 5 power and 5 cards, or if you have less than 5 cards, drawing to that number. It is now the next player's turn. Why would you like this game? The knee-jerk and shallow reaction to Nemesis is to just say it's Doctor Who villainous. While superficial, that does ring true, as they are both action selection games where you play the villain of a popular IP. But once you play the game, you'll see how dramatically different it actually is. What sets Nemesis apart and elevates it are the variable win conditions. Instead of just focusing on the same win condition for each villain, you have your personal Doctor schemes and cards in that Doctor set that will help you win. Not only that, if any other player plays a Doctor scheme of their own, you can win off that, and you can have up to 10 possible win conditions in play at once. And this rewards players who can adapt quickly, who can learn the various win conditions and understand a complex and evolving board state. Plus it fits all 14 Doctors into the starter box. The best thing about this game is the sheer number of game-changing moves you can make. However, Flux is one of the most polarizing games in board gaming history because of its shifting win conditions, and Nemesis has a similar feel. Your enjoyment of the game will almost entirely depend on whether you find that idea intriguing or frustrating. You can play the Doctor in Time of the Daleks, and check out Disney Villainous here. Doctor Who Nemesis. Once again, you now know what Nemesis means. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Dominion in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 2 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. You are a member of the nobility with aspirations of greatness. Can you bankroll and skim your way to the top in order to become monarch? The game ends once either all of the province cards have been acquired, or if 3 other stacks of cards have been emptied. The winner is the player with the most points, shown on these cards here. Note that curses subtract victory points. Deck building. You start with 10 basic cards and will improve your deck throughout the game. Dominion is the original deck building game. Engine building. You will want to select cards that work well together. Player turn. For each game, set up the 3 stacks of money cards, as well as the victory card stacks. The victory card stacks change in size based on player count, and also add in the curses. There will be 10 other stacks of cards, and you can either pre-decide these stacks, or choose from pre-built lists, or randomly allocate them using these purple edged cards. Place all 10 stacks you have chosen on the table. Each player starts with 7 copper cards worth 1 gold coin and 3 estate cards worth 1 victory point. The basics of deck building are that each turn you draw 5 cards. On your turn you then play those 5 cards for their benefits before placing them in the discard pile. You then draw 5 more cards for your next turn. Once you run out of cards you reshuffle your discard pile and keep going. Now let's look at an actual turn of Dominion. We draw these 5 cards to our hand. The first thing we can do is take a single action on an action card by playing it. We choose to play Village. This card will let us play 2 other action cards this round, which is good as we have 2 more in our hand. We place that card on the table. It also says +1 card on it, so we draw the top card of our deck and add it to our hand. We then play this action card, Militia, which grants us money for this turn and attacks our opponents. They can defend against it if they have a card like this in their hand. For our final action we play Council Room, to draw even more cards and to get a second buy. We place down all our remaining cards. Victory cards are only worthwhile for their victory points and won't do anything when played. But the money cards let you buy cards from the central display. Counting the Militia card from earlier and the Throne Room, we have 10 money and can buy 2 cards. So we buy a Witch card for 5 gold as shown on its bottom left, and a silver card. Our remaining money is not held over until next turn, and we can't buy a 3rd card. All cards purchased and played this turn go into our discard pile, and we draw back up to 5 cards. Some card effects will trash cards. Trash cards are placed here and do not go back into the central piles or discard piles. And cards like the Witch are how curses end up in players' decks. Why would you like this game? Dominion is a game with a powerful legacy in the hobby. Every single deck building game out there owes its existence to Dominion. And in many people's eyes, the original is still the best, and that's because it really is the essence of the genre, where the core gameplay is all about deck building with a fixed market that all players can access equally. But that market changes each game, or it can at least. And even the core box shown here has enough variety that you could play hundreds of games without repeating a set combination of cards. Not that novelty is needed for every game. I also love that victory point cards are junk at all times except at the end of the game. That makes for very interesting decisions on how quickly you pick them up. But the reason for Dominion's success is its fast-paced gameplay that is suitable for all ages. The best thing about this game is the fixed market. It dramatically reduces any form of luck in the game. However, I hope you like shuffling cards because this game has a bunch of that. And while it's a good time with evenly matched players, experienced players will be able to decode what's good in the fixed market early. And one could argue that figuring out the market is the actual game, not the shuffling and playing of cards. For a cooperative deck builder, try Aeon's End. And for a different take on the genre, try Dune Imperium. Dominion. the king of deck builders. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Dungeons, Dice and Danger in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players. Playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. Grab your pencils and paper and roll some dice. It's time for you to go marking off tick boxes in a dungeon. The game ends once each monster in the dungeon is defeated, but each monster can be defeated by a different player in the game. The winner is the player with the most points, mostly gained by collecting gemstones. Roll and write. First you roll dice, then you write things on your game sheet. Player turn. Each player grabs a matching adventure sheet from the stack. There are 4 different options to choose from in different levels of complexity. We choose the Clumsy Cultist sheet, which is the second least complex of the 4 sheets. Select one player to be the starting player. For the first turn, they are also considered the active player. Roll these 5 dice. Every player can match up the dice into pairs and record the results. So for this roll, you could choose for your pairs to be a 3 or an 8, or a 7 and a 4. The active player has the option of using the black die in the place of a white die. So here they could have 7 instead of a 12. Non-active players can also use a black die, but only after marking off one of these spaces on their sheet. Now we know how the basic dice system works, let's record some results on our sheet. The bright green areas are our starting locations, and we mark on here a 3 and an 8. Start locations don't need to be connected to an existing location when you mark them, but all other locations do. We use a 7 and mark this space. This is adjacent to a monster, which has the numbers 3 and 9 on it. For each 3 and 9 we roll, we can mark one box on this monster. If we mark off all 4 boxes first, we gain 3 gems. Circle that and then mark them on the gem space below. Any other player finishing this monster gets the second amount of gems. Some monsters, like the Necromancer here, only have their damage number coloured in and usable if you occupy the grey room adjacent with the matching number. The boss is a big monster, and only rewards the first player to finish it. Note that some monsters also cause health damage. You mark that on your sheet here. It will lose you points if you take too much damage. If someone defeats a monster, you gain 1 tally on them, even if you haven't reached them yet. Also, this location requires you to have a pair of matching number dice to fill in, while this location takes 2 steps, and lets you fill in this box down here. The gold piles give you victory points, mark them on the sheet down here, as do the gemstones located around the board. If you fill out a chest space, select one of the 3 upgrades here. The first is a bigger health bar, the second is 2 free explorations with any die value, and the last is more uses of the black die when you are not the active player. And if you are ever in a position when you can take no valid dice action, you lose a health. Why would you like this game? Dungeons, Dice and Danger is very much a by the numbers roll and write game. It gives you the dice, pencils, and tells you to mark stuff off a sheet. And that's probably the strength of the game. All you need is a die, the pencil and sheets. You don't need any other cards, randomizers, or special components. Each round decision point is straightforward as well. Assign 2 dice, but you do need to keep a wider plan in mind about how you explore and keep your options open. The 4 maps each have their own character, and I'm sure every group will develop a favorite. As a pure roll and write, it's low confrontation, so suitable for any group wanting a low-key activity for an evening. The best thing about this game is you get punished for not being able to take actions. It's a pretty good tension point. However, I know roll and writes aren't known for their interaction, but this one felt especially bad in that regard. The game is also just marking off boxes, so it doesn't even have a creative outlet where you can draw fun things. There isn't even any fun set collection or engine building stuff in here to sink your teeth into either. So if your idea of a great time is ticking off boxes in silence and then checking each other's math homeworks, do I have a game for you. For roll and write, I much prefer Cartographers, or the much more complex Hadrian's Wall. Dungeons, Dice and Danger. More like dull, dull, dull. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Elder Sign in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a reasonably complex game. There's something going on at the Arkham Museum. Can you and your colleagues explore this place and discover its secrets before the ancient evil behind it all awakens? All players win if they collectively get a number of Elder Signs shown on the Great Old One you are battling. You lose if all players run out of health or sanity. Dice. Elder Sign is all about rolling and assigning dice. Variable player powers. Each investigator has unique powers and abilities. Player turn. Each game will be against one of the Great Old Ones. Select the one you want to play against and note their special rules. Each player selects an investigator. Gain a starting item shown on their sheet. Here that is 1 purple spell and 1 red unique item. Other characters may start with yellow common items or clue tokens. The core of the game is its dice. The basic dice have 1, 2 and 3 investigation symbols on them, as well as lore, terror and peril symbols. The yellow die has 4 clues instead of a peril, and the red die has a wildcard symbol. Set up 6 encounters on the board, and when it is your turn, choose one to do. We pick the graveyard and move our player marker there. But let's also show our character sheet. We take the 6 green dice and then decide if we want to get any extras. We spend this card here to get the yellow die. We then roll them all. We can assign dice to complete any of the 3 tasks shown on the encounter. Here that is a total of 7 investigation. We roll again and get this result, and place the peril on that spot. And next roll, we get this result, which has no matches to our last available task. But even worse than that, we have rolled a peril and not been able to place it. This triggers the terror ability, which is not great. To avoid that, we spend a clue and re-roll that die, and we get lucky. This completes the encounter card and gives us the rewards in its bottom right. A clue, a red unique item, and the middle symbol is a gate opening. Our character also lets us draw an extra unique item. We replace the encounter card with a new one, and because we had a gate opening, we draw another world encounter card as well. These cards are high risk and high reward. Some encounters will make you take damage as you progress. Others will have spots where monsters can spawn, and monsters make encounters have an extra task. And yet other encounters must be done in order. Now let's look at failure. Here we can't match any result, so we discard a die and roll again. We repeat that until we run out of dice. And then we take the failure consequences in the bottom left of the encounter card. In this case, 2 damage. It's our friend's action next, and they go to the same encounter card. When they get stuck, they have some options that we did not. First, they can store a die on our character for later use. And secondly, they can use spells to store dice. That makes solving this encounter a lot easier. After each player's turn, rotate this clock. When it hits midnight, resolve any midnight effects on encounter cards, plus draw a Mythos card and resolve it. Mythos cards and failing some encounters add doom to this track, and that's how monsters get added to the board. And if it fills up, the old one awakens and starts attacking. Why would you like this game? Elder Sign is one of the Arkham File games from Fantasy Flight Games, and it's one of the lighter and more accessible ones. There's still a lot to do here, and the core gameplay loop of rolling dice, matching symbols, and solving encounter cards is very solid. And there's a truck ton of characters, old ones, and encounter cards. It also has a great phone app. On top of that, there's a bunch of good expansions that really improve the overall experience, but as for the core set alone, it's a great lightweight co-op game for those folk who love dice and want something lighter than most Arkham games. The best thing about this game is its simple core Yahtzee based dice system. It makes it very easy to teach. However, if you hate dice, you're really going to hate this game, as some bad dice rolls can leave you in a downward spiral, because winning encounters gets you cards to make the next encounter easier, and failure leaves you rolling nothing but 6 green dice alone. Interested about Arkham Files? Check out our retrospective on Arkham Horror here. And for something more involved, check out Arkham the card game. Elder Sign, screw this guy. Hate him. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Ezra and Nemaniah in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players. Playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. You are the leaders of the Israelites returning to Jerusalem after exile in Babylon. Can you rebuild the walls, the temple, your farms, and your culture? The game ends after 3 full rounds of play consisting of 6 actions each. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get these from gold cards and many other sources. Just look for the pedestal icons. Card management. You will have 2 different sets of cards to manage. Action selection. Each turn you will play a card and take one of these 3 actions. Player turn. All players have a personal board which has a storeroom, harvest spots, and worker action spots. These tiles are variable. Place down your starting resources, blessing markers, and cards. On your turn you will take 1 main action and some bonus actions. Let's look at the 3 main actions. You'll have 4 cards in hand. Each has 3 colored flags, a trading effect, and a scoring effect. Play 1 onto your board. You may then take actions based on the number of flags showing. Here that is a 3 strength blue action. Next turn we place this card and can take a 4 strength blue action or 1 strength of grey or red. You may have up to 3 cards in play and you will end up stacking cards too deep by the end of the round. Actions cost the strength value shown in their matching flag colours to take, and you can boost the strength by placing a worker here. Grey actions build walls and gates. At game start there are resources on the board, and you may spend grey strength to remove resources from one location. You can also claim a gate by removing its blocked resources and paying its cost on the board. Place the gate and collect any coins on it. Put a worker on that space and claim the reward. Building a wall is the same process, but you draw 3 wall cards and choose one to play. Put the others on top and bottom of the deck. If you build beside a gate, you and the owner get the special gate bonus. Blue allows you to learn unique abilities. Pay the cost on the left and place a worker in the bottom row. Here you would claim the matching hero, who will give you an ongoing flag bonus. With later actions you can claim unique abilities connected to your existing workers, and other players may pay you to place their workers using your connections. Red actions start by choosing to place a worker in here, paying the food cost and claiming the reward. With red actions, you may only take as many actions as you have workers here, but you can contribute your workers to your red strength if you want to take fewer actions. You can place white and brown cubes in the temple to gain 1 VP, or gold cubes for 2 VP. Also claim the rewards on the right. If a temple section is completed, bonus points are scored based on your workers in the area below. You can spend actions here to put cubes on the altar fire. This moves you on this track here, and you claim the rewards below when you advance. At round end, your position here relevant to the profits will hurt or help you, as shown on this card. In addition to your main actions, you may trade using a card's train power down here. Give the owner of that gate 1 coin, or if the gate is unbuilt, place it there. You can also pay resources to flip one of your development tiles. Final notes, this symbol moves your tent, which grants you rewards, and these symbols move your blessings, which can give you bonuses as well. At the end of the round, choose one of your cards and stash it up here. You now score that each round and get that flag bonus on all actions. After round 2, stash 2, and round 3, stash 1 more. Why would you like this game? Ezra Nehemiah typifies what Garphill Games has become known for. It's a tight action optimization game with a lot of interconnected moving parts. A puzzle to solve where the goal is leveraging all the different subsystems and mechanics into the most points you can possibly get. It's another game of theirs that makes you feel clever when you chain together moves and start racking up big scores. I was tentative about the biblical theme, but it's executed well here, feeling like a well-researched historic Euro. The best thing about this game is there's more interaction than a normal Garphill game. However, as solid a game as this is also very normative for Garphill Games, and one could consider it a greater set records of mechanics from their other titles. It's one for the fans, but if you haven't liked their earlier work, this one won't win you over. It's an evolutionary design, not a revolutionary one. For something else by the same designers, try Paladins of the West Kingdom. And for a different take on action optimization, try Underwater Cities. Ezra and Nehemiah. Old Testament, new game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Forever Home in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 5 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. You are in charge of a dog rescue. Can you find, train, and rehome the most dogs to their forever home? The game ends shortly after one player plays their 7th training card. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get these from lots of places, including locations you have rescued dogs, where different colored dogs are at the end of the game, and the training cards you played. Just look for the yellow hearts. Set collection. Collecting sets of dogs is vital to your success. Card management. You will have training cards to manage. Tile placement. You'll place your dogs onto your training board. Player turn. Scoring is a big part of this game, so let's look at that first. There are 4 scoring card sets, 1 for each region above your training board. Shuffle them and deal out 1 for each stack. The city card scores on having different colored animals rescued to city homes. Suburbs cards have you trying to collect different sets for points, and you can collect each set multiple times. Different cards here have different colors and set combinations. Countryside cards are all about collecting pairs and triples. This one is for pairs of the same color, while this version is for 2 different pair. And finally, the foster home is always 1 point for each dog here. In addition to that, there will be meeples of each color dog randomly assigned to this board. The leftmost ones score for the players who have the most of those colors left on their training board. The middle is for most dogs of those colors rehomed, and the right the most dogs rehomed to different homes. Finally, you score points for every training card you played. Now let's look at a turn. You will have 2 actions and can take the same action twice. The first action is to take a training card from the central display. Replace it immediately. You can do this twice. You can also take an action to draft a dog from the central display. And again, you can do this twice. Drafted dogs are immediately placed on your training board wherever you want them. The final action is to move a dog 1 space on your board. And again, you can do this twice. After taking an action, you may use a training card as a free action. Note the shapes and colors of dogs on the training card. This one wants 2 pairs of dogs in a diagonal, just as we have on our board. We play the card, and then because the number in the greenhouse is 1, we rehome 1 dog onto one of the 4 locations at the top of our board. This training card requires a specific formation with blank spaces between the dogs, which we will show here. This card rehomes 2 dogs, but is worth 0 points. You may rehome to any of the 4 locations, just remember to keep the scoring in mind. And you may only hold 5 training cards, and the game is over once you have played 7. Why would you like this game? First of all, the theme of Forever Home is a lovely one. Animal rescues the world over do a bunch of amazing work, and a game featuring them is really nice. Almost everything in the game makes it a solid recommendation for family game night. The components and overall art direction are pleasant. And for a game that's heavily focused on scoring, I'm pleased that there's a good variety of scoring cards to use. And there's a bunch of different training cards that will let you focus on a quick win, scoring points with them, or rescuing lots of dogs. What the hell is that thing? The best thing about this game is the core gameplay is really simple and quite fun. However, I've telegraphed my big issue with the game early on, and it's the scoring. It is by far the most complex part of the game, and I feel it actively trips Forever Home up, taking it away from being a super family-friendly game into being a bit grindy to count up. It kind of sinks the speedy gameplay, which is a bit of a shame. For a more complex dog rescue game, track down dogs. And for another lightweight tile placement game, try Dream Home. Forever Home, Dog Salad. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Formula D in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 10 players, playing time is medium to long, and it can be a moderately complex game. Welcome to Monaco in this year's Formula One race. The cars have finished the formation lap and the grid is set. Just 5 lights and we are ready to go. This game is a race, and the winner is the first car to complete a set number of laps, usually 1 or 2. Dice. The D in Formula D stands for dice. Roll and move. You roll your die and move your car. Player elimination. You can crash out in corners or by wearing out your car. Player turn. Formula D has several modes of play. We're going to focus on the beginning rules using Formula 1 style cars and tracks. Each player picks a car and a driver, and you can have up to 10 players or 5 players controlling 2 cars and teams. Grab the matching card for your player board and then take a dashboard. Put the gear stick in the 1 to 2 spot and a wear tracking marker at the 18 spot. Each gear position represents a different die, and when you are in that gear, that is the die you will roll. They are color coded to make finding them easy. One quirk is that each die is flattened. For example, the blue D30 only rolls 21 to 30. To start a race, each player rolls the normal 1d20, with the highest roll starting on pole position down to the lowest roll at the back of the grid. On your first turn, roll the black die. On a 1, you will miss your turn. On a 20, move ahead 4 spaces. And on any other roll, do nothing special. When you start your turn, you may choose to go up a gear. We do and roll the orange die. We get a 4, and that moves us into the San Devot corner. The 1 on San Devot indicates that we must stop in this corner once, or we will take wear on the car. The green 7 indicates the longest path around the corner, and the red 3 the shortest. On our next turn, we change up a gear to the orange 8. We roll a 7 and clear the corner, taking no damage, because we stopped their last turn. A few turns later, we arrive at Casino and are going really fast, but we're confident and we roll the purple 20-sided dice and get a 20. If you roll max value on the purple or blue die, you take 1 wear on your console. 16 moves takes us to this position, which means we will be 4 spaces past stopping in that corner. We take 1 wear for each space we overshot. We are lucky this is a 1-stop corner, because if you don't stop in a 2 or 3-stop corner, that's an immediate crash. On our next turn, we decide we need to rapidly slow down, so downshift 2 gears instead of 1. This does 1 more wear. On lap 2, other cars have gotten ahead of us around the hairpin heading into the tunnel. We roll a 4, and you cannot move yourself over another car, so we spend 3 movement points to move here, and then take 1 wear from the unspent movement. As we are in proximity to other cars at the end of our turn, we roll the black D20. We would take 1 more wear on a 1 through 4. Keep racing until everyone crashes or someone crosses the finish line. Why would you like this game? Formula D has its origins all the way back in 1991, and I first played an older version of this game at least 20 years ago. And yes, it might feel dated when you look at it, but you know what? Roll and move can be fun. And I know that concept is borderline offensive to modern gaming sensibilities, but there's something entirely charming about the risk management and drama in Formula D's Dice as Gears system. And what do the advanced rules do? A few things. Firstly, car wear becomes about specific parts with different actions causing different types of damage. And they also introduce Fast and Furious style street racing and tracks. And speaking of tracks, there's a bunch of them. This is a great family game and could be fun for so many groups. The best thing about this game is its roll and move done well. You gotta love it. However, the cars are pretty damn small and the tracks can get a bit fiddly at times. And the sound of a 10-car race is a lot more fun than the reality of playing it. Bots would be an excellent addition to the game. For a very different take on dice and racing, try Steampunk Rally. And for a modern diceless take on the same concept, try our next review, Heat. Formula D. Engine noises not included. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Frosthaven in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players. Playing time is medium per encounter, or crazy long for the campaign, and it's a very complex game. You are a group of adventurers who have arrived in the isolated town of Frosthaven. Can you help the township prosper and thrive in the face of a rising darkness? Frosthaven is a massive campaign, but it's made up of scenarios which each have their own objectives. Semi-cooperative. Each player is working together to defeat the monsters, but each has their own personal goals. Card management. Your cards represent your powers, but also your energy. Character development. Characters get better gear and skills throughout the campaign. Player turn. Check which scenario you're up to. Find the numbered entry in the scenario book and set up the map as shown in the diagram. Each player has a character with a limited deck of cards, a model, a dial to track health and experience, and equipment and personal goals. On your turn, you will select 2 cards to play. 1 card will be the leading card, and its initiative score will determine when you act. When you act, you can use the top of 1 card and the bottom of the other, and you can choose freely. In this case, we will use pincer movement because the enemy is between us and an ally. We attack for 5 base damage. You then turn over cards from your attack modifier deck and apply the results. These can be positives, negatives, or even misses. Used cards go in the discard pile, unless they have this icon, in which case they go in your lost pile. Lost cards cannot normally be reclaimed during the game. There are loads of potential effects, including ongoing buffs, area effect attacks, summons, heals, and special movement. And a card can always be used for 2 melee attack or 2 movement. Monsters can have their own action decks, stats, and modifier deck. Monsters can be regular or elites, with elites frequently having special powers. If you are damaged by an attack, you can take it as damage on your dial, or burn a card from your hand or 2 from your discard. If you ever run out of health or cards, you are defeated. You can rest to regain your discards, but you will have to burn a card each time you do so. Elements also have an impact on play. Some cards will show an elemental icon, and when they do, you advance that element right. Elements can also be spent by cards for bonuses. This one uses wind here to get extra effects. When enemies are defeated, they drop a loot marker. This can be picked up for a card from the loot deck. You collect these by ending your turn on them or by using a loot card. After a mission is complete, you conduct an outpost turn. This can involve you spending loot to build new structures in Frosthaven. And through the campaign, you will build even bigger ones. Why would you like this game? One thing I said about Gloomhaven was it was almost too much game, and Frosthaven is Gloomhaven but extra. The tactical combat and decision making with its excellent card play returns, but based on my limited plays it's even more intense as the classes in Frosthaven are more unique and interesting than the starter ones in Gloomhaven. And I think that's the key to whether Frosthaven is the right game for you. Not the extra missions, the settlement building or the narrative, but whether the new classes grab you and make you intrigued. And some of the ones I were trying was simply neato, like the Deathwalker and the Blink Blade, and there are 13 more classes I haven't even looked at. There's a bunch of small rules tweaks to smooth out and improve the flow of the game, and all up, a very intricate and involved game that will give back what you put in. The best thing about this game is its ambition. Trying to outdo a monster hit game and succeeding is something special. However, Frosthaven requires a serious commitment, both in financial terms and the amount of time you'll spend on it. It's a game that needs to dominate your table for the better part of a year, lest it not be worth picking up. If this looks daunting, try Jaws of the Lion first. And for the original, here's Gloomhaven. Frosthaven. It's a gold medal game, but is it too much of a good thing? Kia ora koutou and welcome to Hamlet in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. You are the family leader in a small hamlet. Can you and your family contribute the most to turning the hamlet into a bustling village? The game ends once the final piece of the central church is built. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get those from completing goals, trading, claiming landmarks, and much more. Tile placement. You will place tiles into the village that everyone can use. Network building. You will use a network of donkeys and paths to move goods around the village. Contract fulfillment. You'll complete trade orders at the marketplace. Player turn. Set out the starting buildings with a church in the middle of the table and the town hall, market, and 3 resource buildings placed connected to it. Each player also places a worker meeple and a donkey at the church. Place 2 resources at each resource building. A key concept in Hamlet is that the resources are communal, as are most buildings, but your logistic network is private. To use the shared resources, you must have donkeys connected to move them. Each turn you will take an action. Let's run through them. First, you can interact with a building. Throughout the game, resources will get used, and you can use an action on a resource building to restock it and claim 2 money. The market lets you trade goods shown on these orders for victory points and money. You can also spend money here without using a worker when doing other actions in order to cover up any shortfalls. You can complete one of the goals needed to finish the church and claim it with a marker. You can use the town hall to get new workers, paying 5, 7, and 9 money for each. You can also spend 3 money to get an extra donkey to use immediately. In addition to these uses, you can also use the town hall to claim a building tile to build later. The final building type is refineries, which turn a basic resource into an advanced one. Unlike other communal resources, these refined resources match your player color. If you are the first player to build the first refinery of each type, you flip over your refined resources to the high quality side. When someone else uses your refined resource for another building, you gain the points and money printed in the green area here. And if you have high quality goods, that is doubled. You can build a claim tile as an action, spending the resources shown on it. You cannot place it where it would cut off a road, and placing woods bordering stone makes building a path impossible. Here is a good spot, and the red player places a flag to show they own it. You can later build a path that connects the pond to the town hall and church. Paths can only be over matching terrain types. Once the first advanced production building of each type is built, more buildings are added to the potential build queue. Note that tokens go in the tile draw bag, not the tiles themselves. Finally, once per player turn, you can move all your donkeys up to 1 space. Why would you like this game? Village sets out to be a competitive village building game, where players are both competing to win and collaboratively building the same unique and sprawling village. And there's a lot of unique buildings and different ways to score points in this game, and the key to winning is being able to connect your network to all the other buildings and paths you need to score big points. The goals are nice and give you clear targets, and the church building incentivizes bringing the game to a close for big points. And overall, the meeples, donkeys, coins, and tiles are all very well presented. The best thing about this game is the idea of rewarding the first player who builds each class of refinery. However, at every possible turn, Hamlet conspires against itself and its stated objectives as a game. The rulebook is one of the worst I've used, the iconography is difficult to read, and the board becomes a cluttered mess. It was like it was tested online and no one actually played a physical copy of the game before it was finalized. And this 3D church is just embarrassing. Ultimately, Hamlet is a game that I feel fails to deliver on its potential. For a far more interesting game about village life, you can check out Village. And for a game where you can opportunistically use others' resources, try Brass Birmingham. Hamlet, more like the comedy of errors. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Heat, Pedal to the Metal, in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 6 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. Welcome to the British Grand Prix in this year's Formula 1 race. The cars have finished the formation lap, and the grid is set. Just 5 lights and we are ready to go. The game lasts a number of laps, and the game is a race. The fastest to the finish line is the winner. Card management. Each player has a deck of cards to manage. Push your luck. Heat and stress cards will complicate your gameplay. AI. The game has a system for running additional non-player cars. Player turn. Heat has simple and advanced rules. For this video, we will focus on the simple rules. Each player starts with a deck of 12 basic cards, as well as 3 upgrade cards in their color. Also based on the track, you get additional heat and stress cards as shown on the board. Those heat cards are placed into your engine here. Think of them as your engine's health. Then place all your other cards, including the 3 stress cards, into your draw pile and shuffle it. Deal yourself 7 cards. This is your hand for the first turn. Then put your gear stick on first gear. Randomly determine the starting grid. Here, our yellow car is 4th. Start your turn by deciding what gear to be in. You can move up or down 1 step freely, or 2 steps if you take 1 heat from the engine and put it in your discard pile. Let's start our turn in 2nd gear. We have to play a number of cards equal to our current gear. In track position, players reveal their cards and then move. We have chosen a 4 speed and a stress card. With a stress card, we turn over cards from our deck until we reveal a basic card with this symbol on it. We then add that to our movement. Taking our total movement to 7, we resolve those cards and move our car on the board. If we were one of the last placed cars, we could also move an extra space now or discard a heat card from our hand to the engine. We are in 2nd gear. We can react to discard a heat card from our hand to the engine because our current gear shows 1 cooling. Plus, we may draw a heat card from our engine to our discard to boost speed. This functions just like a stress card, and we add that extra movement to our current move, taking it to 10. This takes us behind another car, which allows us to slipstream 2 spaces ahead. You can also slipstream if you're beside another car, but can only move 2 spaces if there is room to do so. Corners have a speed limit. For this one, that is 2 as shown in the circle. We go around the corner at 4 speed. As that's too high than the limit, we would have to take 2 heat from our engine. If you are unable to draw heat from your engine, you gain stress cards equal to half the gear you're in. You also drop to first gear and your car marker is moved to the start of the corner. At the end of the round, you may discard cards, but not stress or heat cards. Then redraw to 7 cards and it is the next turn. Why would you like this game? Simply put, Heat is about as good a racing game as it gets, and its combination of card management and mitigating risk makes it a truly excellent experience. And what's in the advanced rules? Well, for starters, you can draft 3 upgrade cards into your deck if you're playing a one-off race, or you can play a championship and add new ones after every race. There's also sponsor cards, events, tracks and weather condition tokens, and more. Oh, and I personally recommend playing with the AI system if you have less than 6 players. Straight up, this is an excellent racing game and should be a hit with just about any group. The best thing about this game is finishing the race with no heat left in your engine. Run that car to its limit. However, I'd love to see a team system in this game like they do have in Flamme Rouge, as Heat is clearly inspired by Formula 1, which is a team game. And while the championship system is fun, I'd love to see an even deeper and more robust championship system. Heat is an evolution of Flamme Rouge by the same designer. And for dice instead of cards, try Formula D. Heat. Where's my orange McLaren model, huh? Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Horizons of Spirit Island in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 3 players, playing time is medium, and it's still a pretty complex game. Imagine if you would that you're a peaceful water spirit in a remote Pacific paradise. Then one fateful day, European colonists turn up and start clear-cutting forests, damming the rivers, and polluting your waterways. How would you respond? With flash floods and mass drownings, of course. That is Spirit Island. All players win or lose as a team. And at the start of the game, you can only win if all invaders are eliminated. As the fair deck is used up, that win condition changes slowly until you get an automatic victory. You lose if all the blight runs out, the invader deck runs out, or if a spirit is removed from the board. Variable player powers. Each spirit is unique with unique powers and cards. Card management. You start with 4 powers, but can gain additional minor and major power cards. Player turn. The game is played in multiple phases, with each player playing simultaneously where that is practical. The first thing you do is the growth phase. Look at the top of your spirit board. You can do one of these 3 groups of actions. Reclaim cards lets you take all previously played cards from your discard pile to your hand. Add presence allows you to place 1 presence from one of your 2 tracks on the board. Here we are placing twice, so have the option of taking from either track or both. The number showing is the maximum distance it can be placed from existing presence. If you gain a power, draw 4 minor power cards and add 1 to your hand. Alternatively, you can learn a major power, but must remove 1 power you have from the game as an additional cost. Next, gain the amount of power showing on your top presence track. You may then play the number of cards showing on the bottom track. Pay the cost for each card played. Cards with a red circle in their top left are fast and activate first. Here we play this card on this region, 1 away from our presence. We'll leave this marker to remind us. Next is the Invader phase, where any fair cards are resolved. Explorers will ravage, then build, and explore the regions shown on their cards. Ravage is when the invaders attack. Cities do 3 damage, towns 2, and explorers 1. But only sands are ravaging this turn. In this first region we have 5 defense, so prevent all that damage. The Dahan then counterattack for 2 damage, removing a town. The second region is not so lucky, and that 3 damage removes 1 Dahan and damages the other before they get to counterattack. It also places 1 blight. Destroying towns and cities, as well as other card effects, will create fear. Once the fear pool is emptied, draw a fear card to play in the next fear phase. Build places more invaders in existing areas, and Explore sends explorers off to their neighbouring areas. After all that happens, the cards with the blue circles activate in the slow phase. Note that every card you play and every icon on your power track adds to an element pool that powers your spirit's innate power. Don't forget to use that as well as your cards. Why would you like this game? Horizons of Spirit Island is just Spirit Island with a quick start book, more user-friendly board, and some low complexity spirits. This is both its strength and its weakness. If you're looking for my little Spirit Island, you'll probably be disappointed, as it's still the same core meaty and magnificent game. But that means it's still Spirit Island, and Spirit Island is an incredible cooperative game design. Each of the spirits are unique and fun to play, and how the designer keeps making unique and interesting spirits is just fantastic. And as you learn new powers through the course of the game, you have huge control how to guide your spirit's development. All up, this is just Spirit Island, and I love Spirit Island. The best thing about this game is still drowning invaders with tsunamis and firestorms in the late game. However, the brutal truth about Horizons of Spirit Island is I suspect a large number of copies end up in the rubbish or storage, as the spirits from it are harvested to be added to the main game. For a simpler cooperative game, try Roll Camera. And to see my thoughts on all the previously published spirits, check out this video. Horizons of Spirit Island. It's still pretty damn heavy. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Intrepid in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. You are the team on the International Space Station and something has gone terribly wrong. Can you stay at your console while the whole station blows up around you? All players win and lose together, and you lose immediately if you cannot generate enough resources to get out of the red zone, or if the disaster deck runs out. You win if you complete 3 missions by pushing them to stage 5. Dice. Dice rolling and dice manipulation drive this game. Variable player powers. Each nation's astronauts use different dice manipulation mechanics. Player turn. There are 4 resource boards. This one is climate. In a 4-player game, each one has their own. Grab an astronaut, a career badge, and some dice, as well as your tiles sorted into starter tiles and tiers 1 through 4. Ensure that your tiles are on the side matching your control board's color. Place your starting tiles anywhere on the main board. We start with 2 dice and roll 3s. We place them on the solar array as it wants a double from 1 to 6. This grants us a single die of a 4 that we place on aluminium shielding, which we repeat and get a 2 that we place on the heat rejection systems. By using our dice smartly, we've gotten far more than our starting 2. We then count up how many resources we have generated by looking at the bottom right of each tile. 6 energy and 6 climate. We move our climate score up 6, and the player who is running the power board also generated 5 climate, putting us on +5. Our power combines with their power generation as well, moving it to 7. If a track is still in the yellow, spend 1 emergency supply here and set all tracks to the minimum value shown. You can then spend resources to advance a mission card 1 step. Each mission needs to be advanced 5 times in order to complete it. Track that with a die. Each step increases in costs. Now draw a new disaster card and deal with any persistent ones in play. Then check the lowest value of the 4 resources generated. This this is the surplus you have to spend on upgrades. You can buy extra dice for the amount shown here, and you can spend 1 point per player to advance the research track, which goes all the way to tier 4. This one costs 6 points, but it also costs 2 nutrition drain. What does that mean? Well, that means if you take this card, the nutrition player will need 2 extra nutrition each turn to break even. All upgrade cards drain other players' resources. Then reset the board and claim back your dice. Note you don't get the extra ones you produced during your last turn. A few notes to round off. The middle of the board has spaces where you can place a die so another player can gain 1. Overproducing by a lot gives you a one-time bonus, tracked on the top right of your board. This bonus is either 3 capacity points for each player or advancing 1 mission, 1 stage. Why would you like this game? Firstly, I only showed one nation's board during the examples, and for good reason. Each nation has their own different dice mechanics and unique tiles. This means each nation has its own particular challenge to solve. Thankfully, it comes with a guidebook that explains that for new players. And I think this is where Intrepid excels, at giving each player a different math puzzle to solve each turn. The game is incredibly well packaged and the components are stunning, and it has a huge table presence that commands attention. And the space theme and large variety of astronauts are also neat. All up, a game that would suit cooperative groups who really like to run their own turns. The best thing about this game is when players find out their upgrades drain the other players' boards. It creates an interesting dynamic. However, this game is all about doing math on your own board and sharing the results to the group later. That means the meat of the game is a solitaire segment, and only when you finally report your findings back do you find out if someone stuffed up and you all died. And the events are just not fun, they're mean and unavoidable, and the win conditions are just dull and incredibly anticlimactic. Ultimately, instead of having many options each turn to solve a space disaster, your one option is to do more math at your console. For a competitive game that has unique minigames, try Merchant's Cove. And for a similar system, but with a story attached, try Gen 7. Intrepid, everything I like in a game, except it's not fun. Kia ora koutou and welcome to King of Monster Island in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 5 players. Playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. Once your mighty kaiju would battle for supremacy in Tokyo or New York. Now old grudges are put aside. An outsider threatens to destroy the Earth, and you can't allow that. That's where you keep your stuff. The game ends in a win if you manage to reduce the boss to 0 health. You all lose the game if any player's monsters start the turn with no health, if there are 3 pylons on the island, or if the minion bag is empty. Dice. There are red boss dice and black monster dice to manage. Card management. You will draft upgrade cards from a central display. Player turn. Each player takes a monster and their dial. Set the stars dial to 0 and the health dial to 10. Then select one of the 3 bosses to fight, and you can play challenge mode or easy mode. Grab the red dice shown here and set their health to this value. Whenever you need to roll dice for the boss, they are dropped in the volcano like so. Each turn starts with a boss phase. First check the bosses before movement power and resolve it. Then roll all boss dice not on the board. The boss will then move to the adjacent zone with the most dice. In a case of a tie, go clockwise. Then activate each minion in that area. Here that does 1 damage. Then resolve each boss die 1 at a time. This symbol places minions, the star increases their fame track, and the crystal places a crystal here. The higher the boss's star rating, the stronger their powers become. Then it is a player turn. Roll 6 monster dice. After each roll you may choose to keep some and re-roll others, up to 3 possible rolls. The star lets you increase your fame. The first time you do that, grab one of the 6 ally sheets. As your fame increases, you will gain stronger powers as shown there. You can also use the star to remove boss dice from the board, and that gets you extra fame. The heart lets you reclaim 1 health on any monster in your area, up to a maximum of 10. The claw symbol lets you attack for 2 damage. Shield minions must be attacked first and need 3 damage to remove, so 2 dice with the extra damage removing another minion. A 3rd dice can remove the crystal making minion here, and then a 4th die does 1 damage to this monster. As there are no minions remaining, we can target the boss with the last damage. If you don't have a use for dice this turn, you may store up to 3 in the region. The foot symbol lets you move to an adjacent region. We've rolled this and claimed the zaps here for more energy, and also the spanner. Spanners are used in groups of 3 or 4 to build support tiles in a region, and these give you extra power and dice when you use them. A note about placing crystals. They remove any stored dice when placed, and when a pylon is placed, it removes the support. The lightning bolt symbol gives you energy based on the number of dice. This energy can be used after all dice actions to buy cards from this display. Key powers have ongoing effects, while discard powers activate immediately. Replace the cards right away, and if you draw an event, it goes off immediately. Why would you like this game? First off, let me say King of Monster Island was a pleasant surprise. I like King of Tokyo for what it is, a quick dice chucker that you can't take too seriously, so I wasn't expecting much here. And well, this one has a lot more under the hood. You see, it's a very clever co-op that requires you to play in a planned out and cooperative way. Little things like how you can store dice in a region, and how hard support tiles are to make without doing that. And also how much more power you can get if you use those extra place dice. And there's also cunningly removing bosses' dice to change the boss's behavior. There's some real depth here, way more than I expected. Fundamentally though, the core gameplay is still very simple. The best thing about this game is the allies. I think this is an excellent way to do upgrades instead of variable monster powers. However, the volcano is fun and all, but the dice get everywhere and knock everything over. It's a fun way of assigning them randomly, but be prepared to get some off the floor. And while the rules are friendly, even the lowest complexity monster will kick your butt if you don't use teamwork. Be prepared to lose a little until the game clicks. And it's a little long for what it is. This game is a more advanced co-op version of King of Tokyo, and for a different boss battling co-op, try the Reckoners. King of Monster Island, it's way better than expected. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Lands of Galzir in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. Welcome to Galzir, a land full of animals of all varieties. Can you and your friends explore the land and discover all its secrets? You can play competitively or cooperatively. Just choose the appropriate Harmony or Discord reference card. The game lasts a number of rounds shown on that card, and you either win or get the best cooperative outcome by earning lots of prestige. Dice. This game uses a bunch of custom dice. Narrative. There's a lot of story elements in this game. App driven. The narrative is in digital form in a phone app, a website, or downloadable onto your desktop. Player turn. Each player has a unique character board and can have up to 3 items in their inventory, represented by cards. In the middle of their board is their current money on a dial. At the right is their current skills, and if you change them during the game, take out the matching colored piece and put in a new one. These skills map directly onto the 6 different colored custom dice in the game, and each dice has 2 sides showing doubles of their directly associated symbol, and 2 sides for each of the adjacent color symbols. Let's take an example of a test. We are being asked to test our observation, which is the eye icon. Every dice pool starts with 5 black dice, which have 1 of each symbol on them. Because dark blue is observation, and we have 2 levels of that skill, we swap 2 black dice for the 2 dark blue observation dice. We also know that the pink thievery dice has 2 observation symbols on it because thievery is adjacent to observation on the skill wheel. So we swap another black die for a pink one. There's no point swapping in a yellow die because the yellow survival die has survival, might, and knowledge icons on it, but no observation symbols. We then roll those dice and count up the total number of observation symbols we rolled, in this case 3. We then check the results for that number in the app and follow its instructions. Many story entries will mention keywords, so keep an eye out for them. Here we gain 1 success on the next test for every card we hold with the fancy keyword. Some story answers will ask you to get certain cards from the card library. Just grab them and add them to your board. Now, how about a basic turn? Well, turns are pretty simple. You can move your character up to 2 spaces on the board, and if you're out in the wilderness, you'll get a random encounter. Turn over an event card and go to the first relevant entry in the app on that card. If you are in a location like this, you can visit any of the marked locations by going to their entry in the app. And there's also 3 random quests on the notice board that you can start if you are in the matching location. And finally, some adventures like your starting one just happen as soon as you draw them. Why would you like this game? The first thing I want to say is just how damned wholesome this game is. Many story-driven games are grim, serious things full of suffering and violence. Not Lands of Galzir. It is wholesome, whimsical fun, and what a breath of fresh air that is. Now, one thing to note about Land of Galzir is one game is really just one session. The story will evolve after each time you play it, and even the seasons will advance. But it's not a legacy game, and you can easily reset the game to its start point at any time. But in other words, this is not a one and done game. To get the best out of it, you'll want to play it a bunch. And in order to do that, you really need to buy into the idea of anthropomorphic animals going on wacky adventures. It's a game I feel like saving until I can play it with my daughter in a few years. So definitely one I recommend for families. Best thing about this game is the world building. It's just a lovely, fantastic world they've built here. However, while you can play this game competitively, I really don't see the point. It's all about the journey you go on, not the end results. And apps and digital integration of any kind are anathema to some folks. And for them, there is no printed out book that you can get with all the encounters, as far as I know. For a competitive game in the same setting, try Dale of Merchants. And for a different family-friendly story game, try Robin Hood. Lands of Galzir. Cute animals, cute game. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Legendary Matrix in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 5 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty complex game. What is the Matrix? Well, this game will let you find out. Log into the simulation, run from agents, and discover who amongst you is the one. The game is structured in 3 acts, and you win if you complete all the act goals in order. You lose if all your heroes take too much damage, or the timer track runs down to 0. Deck building. You start with a basic set of cards and add better ones. Player turn. Pick 3 acts and take all their cards. You can choose acts from the same movie or mix and match them. Put the cards marked as Act Extra to one side and then shuffle and stack the others, with Act 3 on the bottom and Act 1 on top. Grab 4 sets of hero cards and shuffle them together. This forms a recruit pool in the dock. Each player then picks one of these persona cards, each with their own special power. That power is played when you play your Free Your Mind card. You also start with 5 strike cards and 7 star cards. Shuffle those up and deal yourself 6 cards. Your goal is to complete each act card in order until they are done, each of which has unique criteria. Start each turn by placing a card from the Matrix deck into the row here. Every time a card is placed down, it displaces existing cards left. So here, a new card going into an empty space would not move the leftmost card. If the card is pushed off the line past the subway spot, it goes into the combat zone and is revealed, which is normally bad for the players. Then it is the player turn. Each player has a standee, and when they are off the mat, they are considered out of the matrix, and inside the matrix when they are here. Each player gets 1 free move in or out of the matrix each turn. Inside the matrix, you can scan cards in the row, using a number of strikes shown below the card's space. Here that is 2. Flip over the card in that spot and resolve it. If it is an enemy, you can also defeat it while in the matrix by spending strikes as shown in its bottom right. You may only freely leave the matrix if the phones in the subway or alley are uncovered. If they are not, you can leave via the combat zone by spending 3 stars, unless the combat zone is full. Outside the matrix, you may spend stars to recruit cards from the dock or hovercraft into your discard pile. Note that cards come in 5 different coloured classes, each with a special icon. If you ever play 2 or more cards of the same class icon, you can trigger special effects, such as this left card gaining 2 more stars. Coordinate on the right card can be used to help other players in their turn. After player actions, each enemy in the combat zone will strike. If you are in the matrix, they will make you draw 1 strike card. If you are outside the matrix, the time track will move down 1. Note that only the active player gets targeted. Finally, draw back up to 6 cards, shuffling your discard pile if your draw pile runs out. Why would you like this game? For the longest time I have said that the Alien versions of Legendary is by far the best game in the series, ahead of its competitors by a fair distance. Well, the Matrix is nipping right on its heels and does an amazing job of taking the Matrix theme and making it legendary. All the core gameplay of the series is here, but the new stuff is what elevates it for me. The decision point around moving in and out of the Matrix really changes how the game feels, and the acts and story structure of the different movies is the strongest in the series to date. I feel the core deck building gameplay and the strong act structure will keep people entertained for a while, and recommend this to any fans of co-op deck builders or the Matrix. The best thing about this game is that any character can become the one. However, there is a trader mode that feels a little clunky and I'd personally not bother with it. Some of the art is a little ordinary as well, and I'm looking at you, Morpheus from Wish.com, and there is absolutely nothing in the game to do with the Matrix Resurrections. It's just the first 3 films. And well, once you get past the top characters, the drop-off is pretty noticeable. As mentioned, this game compares favourably to Legendary Alien. And for a different take on co-op deck builders, try Aeon's End, Legendary Matrix. Now you know Kung Fu. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Libertalia in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 6 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. In Libertalia, you are a skyship pirate, trying to complete a series of dangerous voyages in order to assemble the meanest crew and the most wealth. The game lasts for 3 voyages, and each voyage is 4 to 6 turns long. Turns are known as days. The winner is the player with the most money at the end of the game, and you get money from playing cards and collecting loot. Card management. You will have a hand of crew cards with different effects to manage. Drafting. You will draft loot tokens from the current day's box. Player turn. Randomly put 1 loot marker on each day's spot for each player, so here that is 5 players. The first voyage is 4 days, the later ones are 5 and 6 days long. Randomly determine the reputation order here, and include player colours that are not being played. Each player then claims money as shown below their marker. One player then shuffles all 40 of the crew cards and deals out 6. Every other player then collects those same 6 crew in their own colour. Each day consists of several phases. First, each player picks 1 card from their hand and places it face down. All cards are then revealed simultaneously. They are sorted from the lowest number on the left to highest on the right, with ties being broken by the position of the player marker on the reputation track. Day actions are denoted by the sun icon and take place from left to right. Here the bandit moves the red player left on the reputation track to gain money, and here the brute punches the green quartermaster right into the discard pile. Once all day actions are done, dawn actions are next, and the main dawn action is to pick a piece of loot. But some characters like the armourer also have dawn powers. Once you have picked a loot token, your character leaves the board and goes to your ship. And this is what each loot token does. Night actions are next, and they are shown by the moon symbol. Here our barkeep gains 1 coin and the armourer 2, and once all days of the journey are finished, powers with the anchor on them trigger. Here we gain some money, but lose it all to the quartermaster. Convert all loot tokens to money and then add all your money to the chest. Then discard all crew on your boat. You may keep one character per hook token you have, plus keep any cards you did not play. Then another 6 cards are drawn and all players take them to hand. Start the next round with cash in hand as shown by your reputation. Why would you like this game? Libertalia was a real surprise for me, and I'm going to say it up front, I really appreciate just how petty and vicious this game can be. And that's probably because it isn't a new design. Libertalia originally came out in 2012. This edition brings a new coat of paint and looks very nice, crisp and presentable. But what stays mostly unchanged is the solid gameplay and overall fun cutthroat feeling of the game. There's also a B-side to the board with even more nasty powers for each of the loot tokens, and you can mix and match those tokens as well. But the core of the game is its 40 characters, and the fact you never see the same arrangement each game, so must adapt. All up, a wonderfully intense game that isn't too long and would suit any group that doesn't mind a little bit of take that. The best thing about this game is that everyone gets the same cards. It's very fair, and it also leads to a lot of mind games. However, if you like multiplayer solitaire where no one can really impact you or derail your plans, this ain't for you. And if your kids hate losing, it's probably not for them either. For even more in-your-face gameplay, try King of Tokyo. But if you like card play and drafting but want less conflict, try Seven Wonders. Libertalia, complete with predictable animal retheme. Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Lords of Waterdeep in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 2 to 6 players, playing time is medium, and it's a reasonably complex game. Waterdeep is the shining jewel of the Sword Coast on Faerun, a city of a million souls, all wrapped up in magic and intrigue. You are one of the shadowy Lords of Waterdeep, trying to amass power over your rivals. The game ends after 8 full rounds of play, tracked using these gemstones. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get these from multiple sources, but mostly from completing missions. Just look for the red hexagons. Worker placement. You place your workers in exclusive places to claim the associated benefit. Contract fulfillment. You take mission cards and fulfill them to gain points. Secret goals. Each player has a hidden lord with different scoring rules. Player turn. Grab a faction board. They are identical aside from showing you what color pieces you have. Take a number of worker meeples, known as agents, based on player count. 4 coins, 2 quests, and 2 intrigue cards. And your Lord of Waterdeep. Your Lord has special scoring rules on their card. Keep all this information secret. In the center of your board is your tavern. Whenever you gain cubes or money, place them there. Each round consists of a player placing one of their workers and gaining the resources shown on the location they are placed. No 2 workers may occupy the same space, and each player places 1 worker in turn order, and you continue until each player has run out of workers. These 4 locations all give you adventurer cubes. This location grants you the first player marker and an intrigue card, and this one 4 coins. These 3 actions let you claim mission cards along with a few bonuses. The final one allows you to reset all of the missions before selecting one. The Builder's Hall lets you buy one of the 3 available buildings for the cost and coins shown in their top left. Place the building in one of the spaces on the outside of the board and mark it with your player color. This is now a valid worker placement spot, and if another player places their worker here, the owner gets this special owner bonus. Replace the building you have constructed with a new one. The last spots are Waterdeep Harbor, which allow you to play a single intrigue card. These cards are either utility cards, attacks on other players, or mandatory quests, which are designed to slow opponents down. One quirk about Waterdeep Harbor is once all other workers are placed, you can place the workers from here into any still available spots. At the end of any worker placement action, you may choose to complete a mission if you meet its requirements. Remove the paid cost and gain the reward shown on the card. Some cards are plot cards and will have ongoing benefits for them. Otherwise, place a quest card face down here. At the end of a round, place 1 VP on each of the buildings in the building hall, return all workers to their owner's boards, and if it is turn 5, each player gains an additional agent. Why would you like this game? Lords of Waterdeep is a rock-solid worker placement game with just a little bit of theme added to it, and I found the theming is just enough to hook people in. A lot more than if it had been Farmers of Waterdeep. But that's doing the core game a little disservice. I think what makes Lords of Waterdeep hum is its interaction for a worker placement game. The buildings allow you to create places that other people can visit, and by doing so, they give you an advantage. The mission cards are in a central public pool, so competing over them is tense, as is competition for the spaces on the board. Add to that the intrigue cards, and the game can get quite spicy for €1. All up, this is a game I'd recommend to practically any group, and it can find a home with families, casual, and serious gamers. The best thing about this game is its expansion. It's rare that I recommend expansions as mandatory, but here they are. However, the game really is a very basic worker placement and resource conversion game. The expansions do help fix that, however. And if you are looking for a game with a sweeping D&D narrative, this ain't it. The theming is still rather light. For a more confrontational D&D game, try Tyrants of the Underdark. And for something more real world, try Village. Lords of Waterdeep, A spoonful of sugar does make the medicine go down. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Maglev Metro in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. It's the near future, and you are developing a new set of maglev train lines in a modern city. Can you build the most efficient and effective network of all? The game ends once at least 4 of these coloured stations are placed on the board, and the bag containing workers runs out. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get them from objective cards, collecting passages, and linking up stations. Action selection. Each turn you will choose what actions to take from a set list. Set collection. Collecting different types of passengers will help you build your game engine and score points. Network building. You want to build a network of maglev lines on the board. Player turn. Deal each player 1 objective card from each of the 4 stacks. Each player has a player board, and this board determines the actions you can take and how many points you will score. We start with bronze, silver, and gold workers in play, but can unlock the other 4 colours as the game progresses. On your turn, you will take 2 actions as shown here. Each spot on this board can hold a matching worker, and that grants you benefits. For example, if we load up these 8 spots, we would be able to take 2 additional actions each turn. Each of those actions is in the middle of the board. Let's look at the adjust action first. Here the first spot could be any metallic worker, but the second and third ones must be bronze workers. And when you take an action, its power is the number of workers in it. The adjust action lets us move metal workers about, and because we have 4 workers there, we can move up to 4 of them around the board. For our other examples, we are going to assume we have 2 workers in each action and are taking 2 power actions. Track lets us place tracks on the board, 1 point per piece of track. If the track crosses water, that uses up 2 points. You cannot have more than 2 lines of your colour leaving a station, and you cannot place a line that would cross over another. Nor can you place a disjointed line like this. The build station action only needs 1 worker and lets you place a station at a site you have a line connected to. To build an advanced station, you first need to unlock that type with workers like so. Then place it on the board, claiming 1 worker matching the type and placing the remainder in the worker bag. Maglevs only point 1 way. You can use a move action point to turn around. Each movement point is for a station on a line, not a tile. So turning and moving here would cost 3 movement total. The pickup action lets you add that many passengers to your maglev, but only up to your capacity. And the drop off action lets you drop workers to their matching locations. You can claim those workers and add them to your board. The refill station action lets you draw workers from the bag for more passengers to pick up. Return workers that match the color of that station and redraw. And you may only pick up and deliver workers of a certain type if you have unlocked them down here. Workers placed on here will dramatically change how well you score points. And at the end of the game, you can only score 1 of your objective cards, plus 1 more card for each of these spaces you have covered up. Why would you like this game? Apparently I'm a Ted Ausbach fan, as I have enjoyed Suburbia, Castles of Mad King Ludwig, and now Maglev Metro. And Metro in particular was a real delight to play. I think it's really clever how the tiles are designed in a way that accommodates 4 players. That's neato. Also neato are the maglevs themselves, but the nuts and bolts of the game are the action board and moving pieces around here, and that's a puzzle you'll pay attention to for the whole game. The scoring cards, the scoring in general is nicely varied and gives you ongoing goals to keep your mind focused on throughout the game. All up, I think this is a little bit more than most casual gamers would be comfortable with, but great for everyone else. The best thing about this game is the Perspex tiles that just make it look like you're building a real Metro network. However, I can't say I'm a fan of the color choices in this game. I know that once you have 4 player colors it's tricky, but it's also very tricky to tell these apart at a distance. And the player board section can really overwhelm players initially. It's a lot of information to take in at once. For a much lighter experience, try Ticket to Ride. And for something slightly heavier, try Imperial Spells and Steam. Maglev Metro, if only it was on Mars. Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Marvel Dagger in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 5 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. You are the Avengers, or SHIELD, or Dagger, or some other bunch of acronyms that stand for a superhero group. It is your calling to defend Earth from a villainous mastermind. The goal of the game is to defeat the Nemesis, but first you must deal with their 3-stage plan. This leads to a final confrontation with the Nemesis, and that will have its own win condition. The players lose if the hero is defeated twice, and they run out of time. Variable player powers. Each character has unique abilities and skills. Dice. The game has bespoke dice with special symbols on them. Player turn. Choose one of the Nemesis to fight against. Take their 3 scheme cards, their unique monster card, and set up an event deck that has their unique cards in it. Then set up the main board using a first strike card like this and spawn its matching enemies on the board. Each player chooses a hero and takes one of the 6 aspect boards. These boards allow the same character to play differently. Then claim 3 aspect tokens, 2 grey and 1 coloured, as well as a team up power and your other powers and missions. There are 4 main actions you can take on your turn, and if you look at these aspect cards, you'll notice that each of them has 2 actions that are bolded. Those actions will be stronger for players with that aspect. On your turn you will get 3 actions, 1 for each of your aspect tokens. To take an action, you place an aspect token in one of the slots and follow the written instructions. If you use the colored aspect token, you gain the boost. So here we would move 1 and then move 2 with the boost. To fight, you need an enemy in your region. Roll the dice equal to your character's attack score. Each of these symbols does 1 damage to the monster. The second attack rolls this symbol, which is a wild card, so it also does 3 damage. As the giant has 6 health, it is removed, triggering the special condition on Justice's attack ability, which is to advance a mission 2 steps. The Defy action is normally how you advance these missions, and you must be in the same location as the mission. Roll your Defy score, with each of these symbols being a success. As Justice has this special ability, we get 1 more result, and the boosted action treats wilds as 3 successes. All those successes go on the mission, which in this case needs 4 successes per player to advance it. Finally, Rest lets you roll your tactics die, and for each success you either remove 1 damage or charge one of your special cards. Each character also has unique actions they can use instead of the normal ones. Here She-Hulk can become empowered, and while empowered do her finisher action. Note this symbol, it moves the team up track up 1. The team up track can be spent to flip any player's team up power. Once all players are done, the Nemesis activates. Advance the threat marker based on the active baddies on the board. If it reaches this number before you finished it, it resolves in favor of the Nemesis. Then draw an event card and resolve its effects. The symbols on the left of the card trigger things. This one makes you draw and place a side mission, while this one triggers an ability on Loki himself. Then each monster attacks heroes in their space doing damage, and then spawn new monsters as shown on the card. It is now the next turn. Why would you like this game? Marvel Dagger is a long co-op game that is essentially a multi-stage fight against one boss, and to get the best out of the game you need to buy into that core concept, because it's a game that rewards people for assembling a well-functioning team and who play to that team's strengths. The big draw here is the Marvel IP and the characters it contains, and the strength of your connection to that brand will heavily influence how you enjoy the game. So I'd really only recommend it to fans of the Marvel IP who are looking for a meaty cooperative game that focuses on conflict over narrative. The best thing about this game is some of the combos you can pull off. However, the combo building largely happens before you roll a single die, and the actual gameplay loop is very grindy. Having Thor with Justice Defy every turn is better than him doing anything else, which makes for some very regimented and dull gameplay, which can happen in games like Pandemic, but Pandemic takes a quarter of the time to play. For a far sharper Marvel co-op, try Marvel United, and for a game that does co-op planning much better, try Thunderbirds. Marvel Dagger, please FFG, stop with the custom dice. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Marvel X-Men United in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 5 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. You're the X-Men teaming up once again to thwart an evil mastermind's dastardly scheme. Can you work together to save the day? All players are working together and win if they defeat the villain, first by completing at least 2 goals and then removing its health. All players lose if either the villain or players run out of cards, or the villain completes their villainous plot. Card management. Each character has a deck of 12 cards for you to manage. Variable player powers, and each of those decks of cards is unique. Player turn. Select the villain you are going to play against from the 4 in the box. Place the villain on the dashboard along with 6 random locations, their tokens and miniatures for the heroes and villain. Each player then takes their deck of cards for their hero and draws 3 cards. The game opens with the villain taking an action. Draw a card and follow the instructions on it. First movement, then the BAM effect, which in this case is to do damage, and then placing 2 civilians in adjacent locations. Damage causes a player to discard cards. If you ever discard your final card in your hand, knock your figure over until your next turn, then draw up to 4 cards if possible. If you cannot place henchmen or civilian tokens in a free space on a location, check the villain's overflow effect and resolve it. When it is a player turn, you start by drawing a card. Now, key concept in Marvel United is the storyline, which starts with the first villain card. You play your hero card to this line and take the action shown below. From now on though, once a player places down a card, they take the action shown on their cards and the one on the previous card. The villain acts after every 3rd card, and villain cards don't count for counting back to the next hero card. Some cards have special effects when first played. These do not trigger when the second card is played. There are 4 actions and matching tokens for each action type. If a card gives you tokens, you can keep them until they're played. The actions are move, attack, heroic, or wild actions, which can be any of the other 3. Move is simple, and lets you move to an adjacent location in the ring. Heroic actions can add stars to the bottom of locations. Once 3 of these have been placed, remove this card and reveal the location bonus below. Remove the purple peril token. Heroic actions can also remove blue civilian markers. Attack actions can remove red thug markers, or if the blocking card on a location is a henchman, it can fight them. When tokens are removed, they are placed on the dashboard. If one of these cards fills up, remove it and slide the remaining cards right. This unlocks the effect above. Now the villain is acting every second card, which is bad. A lot more work is needed to make the villain vulnerable in order to win the game. Why would you like this game? Now, the elephant in the room with this review is that I don't have an elephant-sized pile of expansion boxes. This is a review of the retail version of this one standalone box. So while my friends who own all the expansions assure me the game is amazing with them, we must assess what's here. And Marvel United is an excellent lightweight cooperative game that's very easy to learn to play and get into, but feels like it's got enough going on that it doesn't feel like it was a game made for kids. It's legitimately impressive how much gameplay there is here for a game that boils down to take 3 possible action types. The 4 villains of the set are quite varied play experiences, and I do dig that 2 of them are also playable as heroes. All up, I think the standalone is a good casual and family game. Best thing about this game is the storyline. Making your turn impact the next players is an excellent decision point. However, knowing there are a gazillion expansions for this game is a financial sword of Damocles that you might not want to step under. Because while the game is good as is, that lure of spending to get more content will always be there. If you really like deck building, try Marvel Legendary. And for a significantly heavier co-op game, try Marvel Champions. Marvel United. You Marvel fans really like buying expansions, don't you? Kia ora koutou and welcome to Moon in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 5 players. Playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. You are building a city on the moon, but you are not alone. You have rivals who are building cities as well. But can you build the most beloved city and become the new capital of the moon? The game ends after 3 eras of play, with each era lasting 6 to 8 card plays by each player. The winner is the player with the most points, shown using these heart tokens, and you can find them in lots of places. Drafting. Each turn you will play 1 card and then pass your hand to the next player. Set collection. Collecting sets of symbols on cards will score you points. Player turn. Set up a number of bronze, silver, and gold reputation cards based on the number of players. Then each player selects one of the 5 starting bases and takes 2 rovers. In Moon there are 4 main resources: food, water, energy, and metal. These tokens are double-sided, with one side showing 3 of a kind. The game revolves around cards, so let's look at one closely. At the top is its cost to play and the flags required to play it. This section here is what you gain if you trash the card instead of playing it. In this case, that's 1 metal token. There is also a space for a player to park a rover and a list of flags this card provides. You open your turn with a production phase, gaining any resources shown on the left of your base. You will start the game with a hand of cards. When it is your turn, you will pick one of those cards and play it. You will then put the remaining cards to one side. Once all players have played a card, you will then pass those cards left. As well as playing a card, you can also take an expedition action on your turn. These actions move with the hand when it is passed, so in a 4-player game, there will be 4 different expedition actions moving around the board. Now let's take a look at the 5 different types of cards. Blue cards go on the left of your base and produce their production resources when placed. Yellow cards have tags and are placed on the right side of your base. Grey cards tend to produce victory points in the form of heart tokens. Pink cards can be flipped over once per game as an additional action, granting their one-time effect. And red cards are returned to your hand to be drafted again after providing their bonus. Additionally, you can also place 1 rover on another player's board, either gaining resources or flags needed for construction. And finally, you can claim a reputation card if you meet its criteria. This can grant you ongoing bonuses and points. Once all cards in the era have been played, you score this track, granting the points on the display to the player with the most of that flag. In the case of a tie, reward no points. For round 2, add in the 4-point markers and the 5-point markers for round 3. This means the last round could potentially score big. Also at the end of the era, claim all rovers placed into your base by other players. They are yours to use next era. Why would you like this game? Like the previous 2 games from Sinister Fish, Moon is a small box game with a lot of game in it. As always, the art style is a minimalist style that I really dig, and the overall presentation of the game is great. There's some interesting ideas in here, especially around the expedition cards that have bonus powers that get passed around between players. That making your base appealing for other players to place their rovers. I'd say it's better suited to more experienced gamers though, as drafting and engine building like this can overwhelm some younger and inexperienced players. Best thing about this game is the rovers. They're adorable. However, because of how rovers and claiming reputation cards work, you cannot play Moon with simultaneous player actions like many comparable drafting and engine building games. As a result, I found Moon painfully slowly paced. It really takes twice as long to play as it should. For a far more dynamic game by the same designer, try Streets. And for my personal favorite drafting game like this, try It's a Wonderful World. Damn it, Moon. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Mosaic in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 6 players. Playing time is long, and it's a moderately complex game. You are the leader of a Stone Age civilization in the Mediterranean. Can you lead your people through expansion and discovery, and create a legacy that will last through the ages? The game ends once 2 of these 3 stacks have been emptied, or if 3 of the 4 possible Empire scoring cards have been revealed. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get these from lots of sources. Action selection. Each turn you will choose one of these 8 actions to take. Area control. Having the most pieces in an area will score you points. Set collection. There are 9 different icons, and collecting sets of them will score points. Player turn. The game has 4 resources: food, stone, and ideas, as well as gold. Gold can be used in the place of the other 3. Each player has a leader, and they will determine your starting resources and income. You will then draft 5 tech cards and gain their bonuses as well. This game revolves around the 8 actions, so let's look at them. Work lets you claim 1 of stone, food, and ideas equal to your rating here, plus the number of population markers you have here. The population action lets you pay food to increase your population as shown on the card. Place population on your player board. The build action lets you buy 1 of these cards, paying the cost shown below. You can always build a city or town even if no matching cards are showing. Place any built city on the board, claiming any tokens you cover up. Ports must be placed in special port regions. The trade goods you take off the board are placed here. Wonders cost lots of stone and food, and each subsequent wonder costs more. Take your choice of wonder and put its matching tile on the board. The technology action lets you claim a card for 5 ideas. Some cards have prerequisites, shown on their right, and you will need to have those before playing a card face up and gaining its benefits. Some cards have a tactical reason to keep them face down until needed. Tax and tariff cards get you money in different ways. For tariffs, it is money for each unique trade good you have claimed, plus cities, plus tariff production. And for tax, it is tax production, population, and this symbol that are calculated. Note that when cities and ports are built, some money goes to this area. The player claiming a tax or tariff collects all the money here as well. Military lets you recruit units for 5 coins each and move them for 1 coin each. Empire scoring grants the most points to who has the most presence in a region. Here purple has 4 troops versus 1 red troop and 1 red city, so would lead this region. And government lets you claim 1 of these unique scoring tokens if you can afford it. In addition, if you are the first to get 6 of a symbol on your cards, claim the matching Golden Age. Likewise, if you are the first to complete 1 of these 9 Civ achievements, claim it and take it. Why would you like this game? Mosaic is the latest of a long list of games that have set out to deliver a strong civilization experience in a manageable time frame, and it pretty much succeeds at that. The core to its success is the 8 actions. So instead of each player going through a laundry list of things each turn, it's pick one and move on to the next player. The leaders also give you a nudge down a development path and suggest a way to play. And there are many ways to go about that, from Conqueror to Artist to Wonder Builder and Trader. And the technology, set collection, golden ages and achievements gives you loads of feelings of progress. All up, a very solid civilization game with a quick to learn rule set suitable for most groups. The best thing about this game is its pacing. It just rockets along. However, as an action selection system with an unchanging turn order, you can be at the mercy of the player to your right if they go down a similar path to you. Oh, and setting up the game can be a damn chore, and it's a lot less confrontational than some might want from a civilization game. The game also lacks a score track, which is really annoying. For another 2-hour civilization game, try Civilization: A New Dawn. And for the original Civilization, check that out here as well. Mosaic. It's actually better without the minis. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to My Little Everdell in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. Welcome to the Forest of Everdell. It's time to gather our friends and build our village. And you'll need to make the best and most wonderful village in order to host the greatest parades. The game lasts for 4 full rounds of play, tracked using the Moon Token. The winner is the player with the most points, just look for the numbers in the gold circles. Set collection. Collecting sets of cards will win you these parades, which are worth lots of points. Card management. Cards represent critters and places, and you gain them from this central meadow display. Friend placement. Each player has 3 friend meeples that they place in locations to take actions. Player turn. Start the turn by rolling the 4 dice and placing them in these spots. These will show a different combination of resources on them, and the 3 resources are orange resin, brown twigs, and pink berries. Once the dice are rolled, collect resources on any cards you have with this symbol on them. Here that would give us 1 point and 1 of any resource. Then each player takes turn placing down 1 of their friend meeples onto locations on the board until every player has placed all 3 of their friends. If you place a friend alongside 1 of the dice, you will get the resources shown on it. These spots can only fit 1 friend, so if another friend has taken that spot, you cannot go there. The top 3 spots can fit any number of friends, and you get 1 of the resource in front of the spot you place on. You may also end up owning places with this symbol. You can also place friends on those places. After you have placed a friend and collected resources, you may get 1 of the cards from the meadow, paying the cost shown at the top of the card. Here the grass clipper costs 2 berries. Replace that card with a new one from the deck. Cards acquired go straight to your home board. The Grass Clipper could be used on our next turn. Now we've looked at green and red cards, but there are 3 other types. Tan cards give you one-off resources shown at the bottom of their card. Blue cards put into play new rules for you. So here you would gain 1 point every time you get a new critter card. And purple cards are just worth lots of points. If you ever get 5 places, or 5 critters, or 3 of the same coloured card, or 1 of each coloured card, you can claim the matching parade tile. The top tile is worth the most points, but all players can claim each tile once. End the round by moving the sun and moon token right. The player with the sun will take the first action next round. Why would you like this game? Obviously, if my tone in the previous section didn't signpost this enough, this is a game designed to be played with kids and should be judged on that criteria. In that regard, it's perfectly pitched, with colourful characters and simple enough rules that you can play it with kids with supervision, at least to start with. And it also has rules for giving advantages to younger players in the form of bonus resources and these 2 starting cards. And most of the essence of Everdell is left in, which is a pretty impressive achievement. All up, a wonderful family-friendly game. The best thing about this game is the squishy berries, and it always will be. However, it is a kids game, and as far as kids games go, it's pretty exemplary. But if you judge it straight up against other games designed for adults, I suspect you'll be very disappointed in its lack of depth and soft rules designed to lower confrontation. Also, why the heck in this lovable kids game is there a jail? There's also a kids version of Scythe out there called My Little Scythe, and obviously, this is the kids version of Everdell. My Little Everdell. Tag yourself, I'm Berry Bear. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Northgard Uncharted Lands in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 5 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. In Northgard, you are Vikings who have gotten very lost and ended up in a vast endless grassland far away from the ocean. Can you lead your warriors to victory by building the strongest industrial base? The game ends at the end of a round if one player controls 3 closed regions with 3 large buildings in them. Otherwise, the game ends after 7 turns, and the winner is the player with the most victory points, which you gain from many sources. Deck building. You start the game with 6 basic cards and add more advanced ones throughout the game. Tile placement. Exploring lets you draw tiles and place them on the board. Area control. Controlling regions gives you points and access to resources. Player turn. Each player starts with 5 basic cards as well as a unique card for their clan. Shuffle your cards and draw 4 to your hand to start the round. Each turn you will use a card to take an action. Let's look at Explore. Here we have the board. The region with the red troops is a closed region, while the region with the green troops is an open region. You can only explore from open regions. Draw a tile and place it. See how it closes off that region now. Doing that scores green 1 point per tile the region is on. You cannot place a tile in a way that would unite 2 areas that both have troops on them. The build action lets you place a small building for 1 wood or a large building for 3. They can only go in the matching size spots. This building can only be built in a spot showing it. The recruit action lets you add 1 troop to the board, or 2 of that region has this building in it. There are also card drawing actions and special actions. Just follow the instructions on each card. Some cards will let you do actions multiple times. This here is a 2-move action. It costs 1 movement to move a group to an adjacent region over a white line, but it costs 2 movement to move over a yellow line. If you move into a region with enemy troops, a fight occurs. Each troop is worth 1 strength, and this big building gives 2 strength to the defender. Then both roll a die. Red has by far the highest strength, so take control of the region, but green inflicts 3 casualties, 2 from the dice roll and 1 from this building. Green retreats to a neighbouring region. You may pay 1 Lord to discard 1 card and draw 1, 2 Lord to remove a card from your deck entirely and draw 2 cards, and then pay 3 to discard a card to gain 1 of your clan upgrade cards to hand. You can end the round early, in which case you get first pick of the development cards, add it to your discard. In Harvest you gain victory points for each region, 1 for small and 2 for large, as well as the resources generated on each tile and building. Finally, based on the number of troops you have, pay food costs or place an unrest in your discards. Why would you like this game? Northgard is a reasonably fast-paced area control game with some emergent powers that try to keep it interesting. One of the more engaging things about the game are those emergent powers and how you build them into a coherent toolbox for winning the game. There's also a set of 7 clan powers for players to experiment with, as well as a creatures module for a change of pace. Overall, the game is a fast-paced area control game that can be fun if you don't take it too seriously. The best thing about this game is the regions versus tile system. It makes map building a lot more fun. However, ultimately Northgard is a bit of a mess, and it left me feeling like this game needed a bunch more polish before release. Without getting into discussions of balance, the fact players can end up with dramatically different numbers of actions in a round can cause real issues, as can the sudden death win conditions and lopsided fights. For a more epic game, try Lords of Hellas. And for a better deck building area control game, try Tyrants of the Underdark. Northgard, Raiders of the Green Shrubbery. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Oceans in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. Life started in the ancient oceans of Earth as single-celled organisms that kept evolving. What creatures will you and your competition evolve into in order to win this game? The game ends once all the fish in these 4 areas have been taken. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get those from fish you have saved and fish on your boards. Card management. There are 2 main different types of cards to manage, surface and the deep. Engine building. This game is all about building animals that work well together. Player turn. Grab fish for the number of players and mix them into 4 roughly even piles, then put those piles in these 4 sections. The leftmost one is the reef and the other 3 are parts of the ocean. Then pick 2 random scenario cards. Blue ones are constant effects, and purple ones trigger each time one of the boxes of fish runs out. Once the first ocean spot runs out, the Cambrian explosion will take place, which changes a lot of the game's core rules. Each player starts with a hand of 6 surface cards. These represent traits for species. The green is their foraging value, red their attacking value, yellow their defensive value, and blue how much food they gain when a certain condition is met. This green symbol means this animal cannot forage, and this card here provides a special ability. Finally, you can have cards that are almost identical, but in this case, they target opposite directions. On your turn, you'll start by playing a card. This can either be to a totally new species, in which case you attach it to one of these sideboards, or you can add a card to an existing species. No individual species can have more than 3 trait cards unless the game says otherwise. Instead of playing a card onto a species, you can discard a card to move the marked number of fish from the reef or an ocean to a different location. Once you reach the midpoint of the game, you can play 2 cards in this phase. After playing a card, you can now choose one of your species to feed. You can either take the green amount from the reef if possible, or the red amount from another species, minus their defensive value. Some traits will mean you can avoid being targeted at all. If feeding would take you to this point, overpopulation occurs. Discard your population down to 5. Then you must age all your species, moving 1 population behind your screen, 2 after the Cambrian explosion, and more with some traits. Fish behind your screen are stored points. While aging, if your species hits 0 population, it dies out. Your species can have 0 population in other players' turns though. You may then discard and draw up to 6 cards, and select a single deep card, either from the 2 face-up ones or by drawing 3 and keeping 1. Deep cards are unique and powerful traits that can only be played after the Cambrian explosion. Each has a cost in its bottom left, which is in fish taken from behind your screen and placed back in the waters. Aside from that, deep cards are played like any other. Why would you like this game? Oceans is a sequel to a game called Evolution, and that's exactly what the game is about, evolution. What makes Oceans tick is how your species will evolve traits based on what your opponents are up to. If the fish next door is a giant predator, defensive measures will pop up. And if a neighbors are gigantic filter feeders, well, it's just a bit easier for all involved to get free food by becoming whale feeders. And that achievement of making the gameplay represent the concept of competitive evolution while being practical and pragmatic decisions you make for the purposes of scoring points within the game is absolute gold. And while the game isn't the most complex, I think it might be a little nasty in places for family game night, and would definitely recommend it for mature gamers. Oh, best thing about this game is the deep cards. Everyone is unique and paradigm shifting. However, futzing about with all those fish can be a right annoyance, and the oceans and reef boards are just finger traps. It's a trivial thing, but it annoys me. Also, the game is low-key brutal as heck. People can and will eat your species off the board if you let them, so be prepared to evolve some thick skin if you play it. For a different take on evolution, try Darwin's Choice. And for more about Darwin, try The Origin of Species. Oceans, the real intelligent design. Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Ovation in about 3 minutes. Prototype copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is short, and it's a moderately complex game. In Ovation, you are a composer looking for the inspiration and patrons to support you, so you can compose sonatas, concertos, operas, and symphonies. Can you create the greatest musical legacy of all? During the game, players will claim these Maestro cards for victory points. The game ends when only 2 of those cards remain. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get them from many sources. Just look for the gold stars. Drafting. You'll select from 4 different types of cards in a central display. Action selection. Each turn you'll take one of the 4 actions at the top of your board. Engine building. Cards are added to these actions so you can chain powerful combos. Player turn. Set up the 4 rows of cards like so where everyone can reach them. Each row has a matching deck of cards you will draw replacements from. Then each player will choose one of the 6 composers and take their action board. Each composer has a special ability. Then grab 1 red, yellow, and blue marker to track your passion, joy, and sorrow scores on the piano. These are the 3 resources you will be using throughout the game. You also have a composer meeple, and 1 musical note token. These notes are used for combos. The core of the game is taking one of the 4 actions along the top. The first of these is to seek inspiration. When you take this action, you may advance 1 resource 2 steps or 2 resources 1 step. The Seek Fortune action lets us buy an upgrade card from the Fortune row. This card costs the amount of resources shown in its bottom left. Here that is 3 of any color combination. Because the symbol on the card's top left matches the inspiration symbol, we place it under that action. There are also cards for the patronage and perform actions within the Fortune deck. The patronage action lets you buy a card from that row. Again, the cost is in the bottom left. This character is placed in the Fortune row of your action board, but other patrons impact scoring and they go to the side of your board. The final action is to perform. This costs the amount shown at the bottom left, and pieces have moods and instruments associated with them. These are shown in their top left. In the top right is their scoring. The concert music cards have requirements. For example, this card needs you to have completed at least 1 prior performance on piano. Each time you perform, gain 1 of these musical notes. Also, the player seated to your left and right can attend your performance, gaining some resources while granting you a ticket, which you can spend for resources or points. Now we have covered the basics, let's watch how a turn can unfold using musical notes to chain moves. We want to compose this symphony card. We take the inspiration action and gain 1 joy and 1 sorrow. Because we claim joy, we can activate this card to gain 1 more. And we can also activate the top card to move our composer to patronage. We spend 1 passion at patronage to claim this patron, and in skipping the Pope's visit, we place our last note on published, which lets us move our composer to perform to complete the symphony. Note that because of Mozart's special ability, this actually costs us 1 less joy to do. At the end of your action, claim back all your notes. Why would you like this game? Now that last passage of play where I chain together all those notes to take a character with no resources to completing a symphony in 1 turn intrigues you, then Ovation might be a game for you. Because initially it looks like a pretty basic action selection game, about a nice, safe and accessible theme. But once you get into it and come across the engine building aspects of it, the true game is revealed, and it's a pretty sharp one. And that's who the game is for. While its rule set and overall look should appeal to casual gamers, there's a decision-making depth here for far more serious gamers. The Maestro cards also give you something to shoot at while playing as well. The best thing about this game is chaining together a monster turn. It's a great feeling. However, as mentioned, the move chaining make the game one where if you don't get how it works, you'll be left in the dust, making it perhaps not a great fit for families, despite having a very accessible theme. For a similar sense of combo building, you could check out Gizmos, and for a different take on engine building, try It's a Wonderful World. Ovation, the Lydian mode of board games. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Praga Caput Regni in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. In Praga Caput Regni, you are the wealthy citizens in King Charles IV's city of Prague. Can you strengthen the walls, build up the town and its bridge, and even develop the university? Oh, and there's something about eggs. Each player takes 16 turns, and the game ends once this wheel has gone around several times, tracked using these wooden cubes. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get those from many sources. Just look for the crowns. Action selection. You will take 1 of these action tokens from the central dial. Engine building. You will select tiles and upgrades that work well together. Tile placement. There are 3 different types of tiles to acquire and place. Player turn. Each turn consists of selecting an action to do from the action wheel. Take that tile to hand. You also take the bonus printed on the dial. Here that is to spend 1 gold to gain an egg. Now each of these action tokens shows 2 of the 6 possible actions in the game, and when you take an action, you will do 1 of them. The first 2 actions we will look at are gold and ore, and they work the same way. Each has 2 options. If you take the gold action, 1 option is to advance both the gold dial and track 1 step, or you can claim everything left of your marker and not advance on the track. The ore action works exactly the same way. These tracks have numerous bonuses and unlocks, and if you make it to the end of 1 of these tracks, you claim a victory seal. These 3 actions let you purchase the matching type of tile. Note you can only purchase the right tiles marked with an S if the S was the bonus action on the wheel when you took the action tile. The yellow tiles are technologies and give you a bonus every time you take the action shown. They go on this board and can be upgraded later in the game. These buildings cost the amount shown at the bottom and are placed on the board. Some of them you will control by putting your cubes on them. You also gain blue tokens if you match up with existing blue markers. Matching twice like this would give you 2 tokens. Buildings without a cube spot on them score 1 victory point for each tile around the plaza you place them. Then once the plaza is surrounded, players with cubes on their buildings claim a reward from the central plaza tile. The player with the most cubes gets both rewards. Grey wall tiles cost the amount shown in their bottom and go adjacent to your technology board. Matching these symbols up get you red tokens, and you also get other placement bonuses. The final action is to advance on the King's Road, headed to the bridge. This gets you bonuses and normally involves spending eggs. And if you get to the end of the track, you get to place onto the bridge, gaining powerful bonuses. If you ever gain these symbols, move left and right on the matching tracks. Moving up requires spending 2 white windows, but these tracks are worth lots of points. If you ever have 2 gold windows, or 1 gold and 1 white, you may spend them for an extra turn. Once you've done your action, replace the action token and then turn the dial 1 step. Why would you like this game? With only 16 actions per player per game, Praga Caput Regni is all about getting the absolute most out of those limited turns, and as a result this is a game for those who love both optimization and understanding lots of systems, because this game is utterly littered with tiny little game mechanisms and tricks to get an extra point or unlock here and there. Even little things like deciding how far you advance along a track will have huge impacts on your final score, and you just can't hyper-focus on one aspect of the game to the exclusion of others either, which is tricky in a game of only 16 or so actions. All up, a game for heavy Euro fans who love optimization. The best thing about this game is gaining gold windows and taking and chaining multiple turns in a row. It feels good. However, so many little rules and exceptions to keep track of. It's a very busy game and a bear to teach. I also find it considerably more wobbly than the comparable underwater cities. Also, these deluxe features are pretty damn pointless. It's easier to play without them. For a simpler take on building an old city, try Ragusa. And I personally prefer underwater cities from the same designer. Praga Caput Regni. Oh, so that's what the eggs are for! Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Ragusa in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 5 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. You are tasked with building up the city of Ragusa. Can you farm its fields, build its walls, and create your own mighty trading empire? Each player has a number of houses, more at lower player counts. Each turn you will place 1 on the board, and the game ends once all houses are placed. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get these from trading goods, bonus goals, and trade ships. Worker placement. Each turn, place a house to gain the benefits of the 3 regions adjacent to it. Engine building. Having early and multiple placements in one region grants advantages. Network building. Another way to score points is building walls by your buildings, and the longer the wall, the better. Player turn. Each turn you will take and place one of your buildings on the board. Note the 3 symbols adjacent to your house. These represent resources, so place and turn those resource cards on your player board to capture that. These resources are not spent once obtained. Think of them as permanent infrastructure. Now, Ragusa has 2 tricky rules. The first of which is you may only place a number of houses in each hexagonal grouping of 6 as shown by the matching resource. So for outdoor regions, that is wood. With 1 wood, we could not place here, as it would be the second house of ours in these 2 hex groups. We could place here, as that grants us a 2nd wood, which means we can have 2 houses in that hex group. Other players' placements don't interfere with this. Placing inside the walls of Ragusa uses the same rule, aside from the resource is stone. Each location in the city has special rules, and you activate all 3 adjacent to your house. The winery, silversmith, and oil press create 1 resource per house you have in that hex group, times the matching resource you have on your board. Track the increase on your player board. The mason lets you place a wall, gaining 1 point for each of your colour pieces the wall touches. The architect lets you build arches. You can build these over other players' buildings as well. The market lets you obtain 1 of these ships, paying the cost shown. Gain victory points for each star on that ship, then draw a new ship token. Adjust the market board. Here oil went down and wine up. At the wharf you can sell goods based on the market board price. And the fishmonger gives points for every 2 fish you have. Fish is an odd resource. You can get it by placing near water, but you can also spend it to upgrade another resource type. The Rector's Palace gives you a bonus objective card, and the Cathedral lets you sell resources at the end of the game. The second tricky rule in Ragusa is every region with a green arrow in it. Once you place and resolve your house, every other player with a house there does as well. Getting that first spot means that you get to resolve that house up to 6 times throughout the game. At the end of the game, score points for your longest wall section. Gates and houses count, so here that is 14 points for blue. Why would you like this game? Ragusa is a different sort of Euro game, and there's a lot to like here, but its main points of strength is its unusual placement and chaining rules. Ragusa comes alive when people are intensely competitive over spots on the board, and cursing that someone else took where they wanted to go, as well as someone else reveling in the bonuses they get for good early placement. The mini-game within it, of building the longest wall section, adds an extra element that's a lot of fun and quite tactical. The secret objectives are straightforward, with a little bit of set collection, and I like that the market can swing quite a bit through the course of the game based on player actions. All up, a very tactical Euro game for Eurogame fans. The best thing about this game is how damn pretty Ragusa looks once the game is ended. However, few games have more whose turn is it moments than Ragusa, as once you start resolving multiple chained locations, it's easy to get distracted. The game needs an active player token, and we improvise with a soft toy guinea pig. Like building networks and trading, consider Concordia, and you can also consider Castles of Burgundy. Ragusa, not as pretty as the real thing. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Scholars of the South Tigris in about 3 minutes, prototype copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. You are working for the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Your objective? Track down the most exotic scrolls, hire translators, and put them to work creating the world's greatest repository of knowledge. The game ends the round after the last Caliph card is drawn and scored. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get these from lots of places, just look for the gold flags. Dice. There are multiple dice in many different colours for you to manage. Action selection. Each turn you will use cards, dice and workers to select an action to take. Set collection. A lot of points come from collecting sets on scroll cards. Player turn. You have a bag full of dice and will draw 4 to start the game. Each turn you will use 1 card combined with dice to take the action shown below it. Many actions require both certain values and the dice to be specific colours. White workers can be used to make a white die a 6. A coloured worker can be used to change a die to its colour. 2 workers can be used on 2 dice to make a secondary colour. If a coloured die is placed in a set, it changes that set. 2 primary coloured dice combine to a secondary colour, and secondary dice are always their own colour. Now we understand how dice and colours work, let's look at the actions. First is to hire a translator. This needs any coloured die as shown below the translator, 5+ here. We can dismiss the translator to gain 1 gold or recruit them. We find an empty space in the translation hall and pay the cost in the top left and get the benefit in the top right. We then mark the translator to show we control them. Next is travel, and we can move clockwise up to our dice value. If we stop on a white circle, we claim the reward shown. If we stop on a black circle, we claim the scroll to translate. This costs 4 coins, but we gain the benefit shown in the location we place it. And because our action here was blue, and we pass through this blue section, we can mark the scroll with influence. If a Caliph card is revealed, when replacing the translation card you score it. Starting at the purple tower and moving right, the player with the most influence in each area claims a reward. Anytime you interact with a card with a research symbol on it, advance the matching track 1 step. Gaining rewards shown in clear spaces, solid spaces are income you gain during rest actions. You can also take the research action. Check your dice colour and value here. Our action is a blue 9, so we gain 2 coins and advance on the blue track. The final action is to translate, and you need to match dice colour to the tower. So here that is purple. We need to translate from Persian to Arabic. The only 2 translators we currently have are here, so we need to go from Persian to Syriac and then to Arabic, paying 1 gold to each translator. As the amount of gold on the right translator matches the amount in their location, we retire them. Their controller may place them under action cards, gaining the printed benefits each time they take that action. Finally, you can rest to recover cards and dice. Each card on your board will give you an income, much of which is based on their position on the tech trees. So here we will draw 5 dice instead of 4. Why would you like this game? Scholars is one of the most intricate games I have played, and while it fundamentally boils down to choosing 1 of 4 actions to do each round, the game is wide open. Everything is scarce and decisions around what tech tracks to advance and when to rest and claim resources are huge. So it's a game where every decision matters, and not being able to take the actions you want will frustrate you. It's an optimizer's dream game. There's also some clever stuff in here, like how each translator is unique, but the 8 stacks ensure all language options are available. And this randomly assigned achievement list that gives you workers and dice when you complete milestones and then becomes a new action slot. The best thing about this game is, even though there's a ton to do, the game is essentially picking 1 of 4 actions. However, do you like icons? Well, you better if you're going to get to grips with Scholars, as there's a bunch of them, even more so than most Garphill games. And if you get lost and fall behind, there's very little ways to catch up. The technology track here reminds me a lot of Gaia Project, another optimizer's dream game. And for another great game by the same designers, try Paladins of the West Kingdom. Scholars of the South Tigris. How pretty is that board? Gold medal game. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures in about 3 minutes. Review copy used, and hopefully minimal spoilers. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to any number of players. Each case has a long playing time, and there are 10 of them, and it's a really simple game. You are in London in the late 1800s, and you are one of the Baker Street Irregulars, a group of associates who assist Sherlock Holmes with cases. He's set you the challenge of solving cases alongside him. How well can you keep up? As a group or alone, you will work through each individual case, following leads until you have solved it. You'll then turn to the back of the case file and attempt to answer the questions there. You'll then open the envelope here to check your answers, scoring points for each correct one. In most scenarios, you'll lose points for following too many leads. Narrative. The Sherlock Holmes games are all about the story. Push your luck. You can end the game at any point and go straight to answering questions. Player turn. This version of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective comes with 6 regular cases, and the 4 interconnected cases of the Jack the Ripper murders. The cases should be done in chronological order, starting with either the first regular case and working through them, or the first of the 4 Ripper cases. In our examples, we will use the first of the Jack the Ripper cases, Mary Ann Nichols. We grab the London map, which is broken into 5 districts with blue letters and many locations with numbers on them. This is the map we would exclusively use in regular cases. As we are doing a Ripper case, we flip the map over to its Whitechapel side. This side has 2 districts with letter codes and some locations just off the map. We also grab the newspaper that matches the date of our case and examine it for clues. Each later case will have its own newspaper, and there may be hints for those later cases in earlier newspapers. We also keep ready the list of informants on the back of the rulebook and grab the London Directory, which has a list of hundreds of names in it. We start this case by opening the casebook up and reading the introduction. This, along with the newspapers, should prompt us to find some leads. We here note that the murder of Mary Ann Nichols was in Bucks Row. We scour the map and find Bucks Row here, an E district with the number 2. So we open the case file to 2E and read the entry, noting down that we have read entry 2E. The same is true for the other map. Perhaps we want to go to Scotland Yard, so here we would look at entry 13SW. The list of informants can be used as well, and we decide to talk to the head medical examiner at 38EC. All of these entries give us more information, and we may even stumble across names of interest. Here we see Thomas Drew mentioned and want to talk to him. So we get the London Directory and search for their name in here. That gives us an entry number to turn to in the book to find out more. Keep track of every number entry you look at. And if you go to look for someone and there isn't a relevant entry in the case file, just ignore it and pick another lead to follow. Then, once you think you've solved the case, turn to the back, answer the questions, and check your answers. There is then a solution that explains the whole case as well for you to check out afterwards. Why would you like this game? The first game in the series came out in 1982, and yet the series remains a high watermark for whodunits. Its rules are incredibly simple and intuitive, and it's the kind of thing you can pull out after dinner with the family and solve together. It's one of the rare game concepts I would recommend trying with self-confessed non-gamers, because just about anyone can grasp the idea of a murder mystery. And because none of the components are damaged by playing it, once you've solved all the cases included, you can sell it or gift the game onwards. Best thing about this game is just how dumb Sherlock makes you feel when you read the solutions. However, while the regular cases are your usual locked room mysteries and joyful whodunits, the Ripper cases are something else. These are actual murders against actual women committed by a psychosexual serial killer. The final case in particular of Mary Kelly is an extremely gruesome crime. The tonal shift between the regular and Ripper cases is dramatic. So instead of the set, I recommend the original case files, which has 10 wonderfully written non-historic cases. And for a different take on crime, try Spy Club. Sherlock Holmes Ripper Files. Needs more homes and less alleyways. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Shipwrights of the North Sea in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 5 players. Playing time is medium, and it's a reasonably simple game. You are a raiding chief wanting to set sail onto the Atlantic Ocean for some glorious Viking. Your only problem is you don't have a mighty fleet. Well, not yet at least. The game ends after 5 full rounds of play. Those are tracked using these cards. The winner is the player with the most points. Just look for the gold flags. Drafting. Each turn you will draft and pass 6 cards. Card management. There are many different card types to manage in this game. Set collection. Collecting icon sets will advance you on these bonus power tracks. Player turn. The game has resources of iron, wood, and wool, as well as gold, which can be used as the other 3. There are also silver coins and worker meeples. Each player has some starting resources, a ship, a labourer, and a random building. Start the turn by flipping over the turn card. This shows what trades will cost this turn and what direction you will pass cards while drafting. Then get 6 cards, look at them and choose one to keep, before passing the remainder to the next player. You will in turn receive a new hand of cards from another player. Keep repeating this process of picking a card to keep and passing until you have 6 cards. The main phases of this game happen simultaneously, and will have you using the 6 cards you drafted. The first thing you can do is discard any card for the resource or worker shown above the red X symbol. Cards come in 5 main types, so let's look at how each is played. Buildings cost the amount shown on their left to construct. Spend those resources and place the card below your player board. You can place a worker on a building spot to get its rewards. Here that is to draw 2 cards. Townspeople can be played as one-off powers, here discarding a card to get 5 silver. Or you may pay 1 gold to place them under a building. This gives that building a second power. So here 1 worker on a discarded card gets back a worker and 7 silver. Jarls can be discarded for valuable gold or placed under a building for its icons and victory points. Next up is a ship we want to build. It needs a lot of resources as well as 2 crafts. We place the ship on our player board. The stonemason has 1 of these crafts, but it will cost us a silver to use. We also put them on our player board. And we also have this blacksmith, but decide to keep them, paying 1 gold to place them under a building. Note that each building can only house 1 other card. Now we go to build this ship, and we have the worker, wood, and wool, but we don't have any iron. We check the current turn card, and it says that iron costs 2 silver each in trade. So we spend 6 silver to get the iron we need, and place the ship above our board. We use the craft skills that we needed, but because the stonemason isn't in a house, he is discarded. You can also use the labourer at the cost of gold and cards for any craft symbol. Now these icons advance you on these tracks. The red track grants you raid cards that you can spend workers on for rewards. The blue track gives you income cards, and the yellow track upgrades your starting cards. The players furthest along these tracks gain leaders as bonus cards for the next round. Finally, collect the income shown on your cards with the moon symbol. Why would you like this game? First of all, I never played the original Shipwrights of the North Sea, but my understanding is that this isn't a new edition of that game at all. It's an entirely new game using the same thematic start point, Vikings building ships. But what really surprised me is after playing a lot of recent Garphill games, is just how accessible and straightforward this one is. Despite being the newest game in the franchise, it's probably the least complex and intimidating, which makes it the perfect start point if you're looking at their games because the complexity ramps up from here. And generally, I am a sucker for engine building and drafting games, and if that's your jam too, I suggest you would like it. Oh, and it has these thingies for Tomb Saga if you have that. But the best thing about this game is the simultaneous actions. Once you know what you're doing, the game blasts by. However, all drafting games move at the pace of the slowest player, and doubly so as the main phase is simultaneous actions. If you get frustrated at one slow person you play games with, you're gonna hate this game. For the smash hit sequel, check out Raiders of the North Sea. And for a similar feeling game, try It's a Wonderful World. Shipwrights of the North Sea. It's a Wonderful Fjord. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Spellbook in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. You are a wizard competing at a magical tournament. Can you be the first to craft 7 mighty spells, all while feeding your familiar magic power? The game ends once either one player has completely filled their familiar board with stored tokens, or if any one player has learned all 7 of their spell cards. The winner is the player with the most points, gained from spells and stored tokens. Drafting. You draw tokens from the bag or from the display. Set collection. Sets of colour and sets of runes matter in this game. Engine building. Each spell you unlock grants you power to use in the game. Player turn. Each player has 21 spell cards in 7 different colours. For each game you will select 1 card from each of these colours and all players will play with the same cards. For our play example, we will use the least complex set of 7 cards. Place the altar tile in the middle of the board and place 5 tokens on it. Each player then grabs their familiar board and takes 2 tokens randomly from the bag. Note that tokens have 2 bits of information, their colour and their rune symbol. Each player takes their turns, 1 at a time, and each turn has 3 action phases. At the beginning of the game, you will only be able to take the options shown here. For morning, that is to draw 1 token from the altar or 2 from the bag. For midday, that is to do nothing or store 1 token on your board. Note that you score victory points at the end of the game equal to the lowest amount uncovered by a token. And the evening action is to learn a spell. Learning spells is what opens up more options in the game. Each spell has 3 possible levels you can learn it at. Each one costs a number of colour matching tokens equal to the number of linked circles showing. So here, that is 3 to 5 from bottom to top. We have 2 yellow tokens, which isn't enough, but we also have 3 other tokens with matching runes on them. These 3 can be spent together as 1 wildcard token, and that gives us 3 yellow tokens, and we place a token of our choice in the bottom spot of that spell. This spell has a lightning bolt effect, and that's an instant, so it lets us draw 2 new tokens from the bag. It also scores 3 VP at the end of the game. Note that once you have learned a spell, you cannot learn it again. Most spells once learned let you do a different action in a set phase to the normal ones. In the morning, the purple spell allows us to draw 2 matching runes from the altar, while the red spell lets us discard tokens to draw from the bag. At midday, the green spell lets us swap tokens with the altar, while the black spell lets us store multiple tokens of the same colour. The blue spell lets us learn another spell at a reduced cost, while the white spell lets you improve the level of any other spell you have learned. At the end of a turn, if there are less than 5 tokens on the altar, refill to 5. If there are more than 5, add 1, and if all 10 are there, discard them all and redraw to 5. It is now the next player's turn. Why would you like this game? Spellbook is an easy to learn and family-friendly game made all the more appealing by its fun theme, great components, and lovely art. The core gameplay loop is simple and intuitive, and the game does accelerate towards the end as more of your unique powers come online. The art is really lovely, with all 21 spell cards having evocative images, all while being easily passable as what colour spell they are. And the different combinations of spells do shape the game up a little. All up, a solid game for families and casual gamers. The best thing about this game is the spell tokens. They're a fun component, and I know a few games that would be enhanced by them. However, Spellbook is a game that has to compete in the same niche as Splendor and Sentry Golem, and I'm afraid it doesn't measure up well there, being both longer and more luck dependent than either game. As such, this wonderful looking game is destined to become your 2nd or 3rd favourite game in its own niche. As mentioned, this game is competing with Splendor and Sentry Golem, and for a more complex game that would benefit from those tokens, try Quacks of Quedlinburg. Spellbook, it's not a page turner. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Star Wars Rivals in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 2 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. Grab your squad of 3 heroes or villains from the Star Wars universe, and battle your friends in this fast-paced area control game with tiny bobblehead thingies. The game ends the round after the location deck runs out. The winner is the player with the most mission points, and you get them from winning locations. Variable player powers. Each player has 3 different characters, each with unique abilities. Area control. A contested location is won by the player with the most influence there. Player turn. In Star Wars Rivals, one player will play the light side while the other plays the dark side. You must select 3 characters, which can include trooper tokens and named characters. Then grab the character cards for each character and shuffle them together to form a deck of cards. Between the 2 players, place the 12 locations. Flip 3 face-up and leave the other 9 in a deck. Then mark the face-up locations with the 1, 2, and 3 markers. Set up the players like so, and then each player draws 3 cards to hand. One player is given the higher ground marker, and they are the first player for the first turn. Starting with that player, and alternating back and forth, each player places 1 character on one of the 3 face-up locations. The troopers are represented by their token. You can always place on locations where characters already are. Theoretically, you could place all 3 of your characters on the same location. Once all characters are placed, roll this die. If you get this result, the highest gold value location is going to be scored this round. Otherwise, you score all locations shown on the die roll. But before scoring, each player selects 1 card in secret. Then starting with a player with a high ground marker, you flip and resolve each card one at a time. As all locations are scoring this round, and the Rebel Trooper is also at the last homestead, Luke moves to a new location. Ventress's card puts -1 markers on each enemy at her location. Now that both cards are resolved, score each location. The light and dark side each get 1 location because they were uncontested. But for the other location, we compare power values. Ventress and the Imperial Trooper combine to 5, and normally Luke and Cody would combine to 9, but each has multiple -1 markers, so they combine for a total of 5 as well. In the case of a tie, the player with the high ground wins. Now, this location has special rules, which ignore the -1s anyway, and you do need to be mindful of these bonuses. At the end of the round, replace all scored locations with new ones, and flip the high ground marker to its other side. To remove -1 markers, your character must spend a whole round off the board in the bacta tanks. Once the location deck runs out, all remaining locations are up for scoring in a final round. Why would you like this game? Star Wars Rivals is a quick-paced dueling game with low rules overhead. It sets up and packs away quickly and makes for a good break time or filler game. It's also very portable, as you can fit 3 characters and the pieces required into one of the expansion boxes. And the collectible nature of the game will appeal to some, with each of these expansion boxes holding a random character along with the parts needed to play with them. That said, I think this game is best suited for Star Wars superfans who also like Funko Pops. The best thing about this game is you really only need 1 small pack to play. However, there's not much game here really, and while I think kids and teens might have a damn good time with it for a while, I can't see it holding anyone's attention for too long. And the collectible nature of the game will be anathema to many out there. I personally can't stand collectible games. Oh, and the cards are possibly the thinnest card stock I've ever seen in a game. The Star Wars deck building game does something similar to Rivals, but in a much better way, and Dice Throne is a more robust portable dueling game. Star Wars Rivals, available in a landfill near you soon. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Star Wars The Clone Wars in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a reasonably simple game. The Clone Wars are underway and you are one of the Jedi Order, fighting a desperate battle against Count Dooku and his separatist droid army. Can he restore order to the galaxy and balance to the Force? All players work together and the game ends in a victory if you complete all the missions and then win the finale. You all lose if the threat marker reaches the end of this track. Card management. Each player has a handful of cards to manage during the game. Variable player powers. Each player plays a Jedi with their own unique abilities. Player turn. Each player takes a character card. Each character has a unique free action that they can do once during their turn. Each character also has a miniature. Much of the game revolves around these squad cards, and they come in 4 coloured suits. Each suit has the same card power. There are also unique character cards that can be played by any player in any turn. When it is your turn, you will take 4 actions, and you can take the same action multiple times. Note, many actions require you to tap cards. Tap cards are turned on their side but are not discarded. At the start of your turn, you untap all cards. The first action is to draw cards. Your maximum hand size is 7. The second action is to move your Jedi. You can normally only move 1 space per action, but you can tap a blue card to move twice. You can spend an action to attack droids. Roll the die. Each of these symbols is a hit on the enemy. You can boost the damage you do by playing either purple or red cards together, but not both. The other symbol is damage your Jedi takes, and you must either discard a card or tap a yellow card to prevent it. Finally, if you are on a location with a mission, you can attempt to complete it. Here we need a total of 6 successes in order to complete the mission, and red, purple, and yellow cards count. Both players can contribute to complete the mission. Also, the 1 damage on the mission can be prevented. Replace the mission and move the mission marker. Then it is the villain's turn. Reveal one of their cards and follow the instructions on it. If you draw Planet Under Siege, complete the following steps. Advance the invasion track here. Take the bottom card from this deck and place 3 droids on that planet. Then shuffle the discards and place them on top of the invasion deck. Finally, it is the invasion phase. Draw cards equal to the invasion track and place 1 droid on each planet. The mission planet is where the current mission icon is. If there would ever be 4 droids on a planet, place a blockade marker and advance a threat track. Blockade markers take 2 hits to remove. Why would you like this game? There's a lot to like in the Clone Wars, and it's a very dynamic cooperative game. This combines with its reasonably light rules overhead and the familiarity many will have with Pandemic and Star Wars, and right out of the box this is a family game night hit. I really appreciate how much the 4 different villains change up the game, and along with altering the number of cards in the mission deck, you can really dial up the difficulty. The cards are simple and good looking, and where some might not like that the cards only have a few effects, I appreciate how that keeps it simple. The overall presentation of the game is rock solid too, and the sculpts are nice. The best thing about this game is it legitimately improves on a lot of Pandemic's fundamentals, and is generally a more enjoyable game. However, if you really hate Pandemic, this one probably still won't change your mind. And personally, I hope for a lot more from a game called The Clone Wars than just the Pandemic mod, as good as that mod is. For the original Pandemic, you can check that out here. And for a proper epic scale Star Wars game, try Rebellion. Star Wars The Clone Wars. Pandemic The Clone Game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Star Wars, the deck building game, in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. In a galaxy far, far away, the battle between the Galactic Empire and the Rebel Alliance is hitting full swing. Can you marshal your forces, defeat your enemy's fleet, and master the Force in order to win this head-to-head game? This game has 1 winner and 1 loser. Each player has an agreed number of bases that, when destroyed, are replaced. You lose if your final base is destroyed. Deck building. You start with a preset hand of cards and improve them throughout the game. Drafting. You'll select cards from the central display to add to your deck. Player turn. Each player starts with 7 basic resource generating cards, 2 attacking cards, and 1 card with variable powers on it. Shuffle these cards and draw 5 each. You also have a starting base. Set the power of the Force tracker between the players with the marker cube on the Rebel side. The Empire player takes the first turn. We will play as the Rebels. Draw 6 cards from the main deck and place them in the middle of the table. Cards with the Rebel symbol are oriented towards you. Imperial cards oriented towards the Imperial player, and grey neutral cards on their side. This is the Galaxy Row. Let's do a very basic turn. Because the Force is totally on our side, we gain 1 yellow resource cube. We also play 4 Alliance shuttle cards, each of which gives us 1 resource. We spend all 5 of those to buy this B-Wing and put it in our discard pile. Our last card to play is this Rebel Trooper with 2 attack, and we do 2 damage to our opponent's base. We then place all our cards in the discard pile and draw 5 new ones. This ends our turn. We will reshuffle the deck if we run out of cards. This ability here is what shifts the Force tracker in your favor, and numerous cards have benefit if the Force is in your favor. And now for a more complex turn. We do not fully have the Force on our side, so do not get the bonus resource, but we do get 1 from our blockade runner. We also use our Rebel transport to repair 2 damage to our base. We start by playing an Alliance shuttle for 1 resource. The Imperial AT-AT is in the Galaxy Row, and we note that it has this 6 here. This is how much attack we need to remove it from the Galaxy Row to gain the shown reward. We then play Dengar and a Trooper for 6 attack, and put this Mon Calamari cruiser from the Galaxy Row into our discard for free as a result. Dengar also gives us 2 more resources, and we spend all 4 of those on a Hammerhead. We play an X-Wing, which lets us draw another card because the Force is in our favor, and a Rebel Commando and a B-Wing. The Imperial player discards a card from the Rebel Commando, but doesn't want to discard a second one from the B-Wing. We also have our Blockade Runner attacking. We place damage markers on them up to their attack value and then assign them to the defending Imperials. We have to remove capital ships first before being able to directly damage the base. Those 2 capital ships go into the Imperial player's discard, while the 2 damage remains on the Death Star base. If a base takes enough damage to be destroyed, excess damage is ignored. And at the end of your opponent's turn, you choose a base from the agreed upon list to replace it, gaining a new base power. Why would you like this game? This is a great and simple dueling game that has enough going on to be quite interesting. Fundamentally, it is a deck building game, and it doesn't veer far away from the norms of that genre, but it does have some fascinating features. I really like that you can blow up stuff in the middle row and get rewards for it, and there are optional rules for removing neutral cards as well. And the bases and their powers are very cool, and I found myself having a good time choosing which base would be my replacement. And finally, there isn't much repetition in the cards, and you only see maybe 1/3 of the deck every time you play. That keeps the game reasonably fresh. All up, it's suitable for most ages too. The best thing about this game is it's a dedicated dedicated dueling game, and as a result, the experience is nicely polished. However, it's still just a basic deck building game, and if you don't like the main traits of that genre, nothing here will save that. And I imagine you might get over the core gameplay loop pretty quickly if you overplay it. This game is compared to Star Realms a lot, and for a heavier Star Wars game, try Rebellion. Star Wars, the deck building game. Perfectly good for what it is. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Starship Captains in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. You are a starship captain setting out into the galaxy. Can you improve your ship and crew, complete missions, and advance your favor with the factions in the region in order to become the greatest captain of all? The game ends after 4 full rounds of play. Each round ends once all players have either used all their crew members or passed. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get those from many sources. Action selection. Each turn you will take an action, normally using workers. Engine building. Collecting tech cards that work together well is key. Player turn. Each player has a starship marker on the board, as well as their own personal starship board. Areas with orange markers are currently damaged and cannot be used. The 6-panel board at the bottom is the technology board, and we'll look at that later. This area is for the expended crew. And here are the ready crew. Each turn we will select an action to take, and then it is the next player's turn. The 4 basic actions are shown here. The grey action can be taken by the grey ensign or any other crew member, and it repairs 1 damage on the ship or tech board. Once the action is resolved, place a crew member in the expended crew area. The blue action here lets you claim one of the technologies from the display and place it in your tech board. If your card placement matches up with symbol already on your board, you get a bonus action, in this case a free repair action. We want to take the yellow action, but have no yellow crew. So before our action we can spend a medal to change one crew to another color. We change our grey ensign to a yellow crew and take the action. This action attacks one of the pirate ships nearby your ship marker. You gain either a robot or an artifact and a medal. In both cases you take 1 damage. The red action can be used to move the ship, and as this action has 2 arrows, it can move 2 spaces. Alternatively, you can use an action marked on a matching colored room on your ship. So here we could move or use the captain's chair. And the last action is to complete a mission on a planet you are on. Take the mission and place it by your board. If you use crew matching the colors on the mission, you will gain the rewards shown. Otherwise, you can use non-matching crew and still claim the mission for its victory points. When a mission is resolved, move the highest red marker to that region and place a mission in the new empty space. When this timer ticks down to 1, lots more pirates arrive. Some closing notes. 3 medals can upgrade a figure to an officer, and officers get bonus actions. Any reward with an up arrow moves you along these tracks, where you claim rewards and trigger events. Going around these tracks multiple times scores you extra points. A pair of artifacts can be spent to take an action, so these 2 could be used for a yellow action. Pirate ships, when defeated, go here as trophies, and you can claim tin can robots as rewards. These can be used in any mission space to get a reward, and some mission spaces only match to them. At the end of the round, rotate your crew so that only 3 remain in the queue, then start the new round. Why would you like this game? Starship Captain sets out to deliver a lightweight, tongue-in-cheek game where you are exploring space and completing missions. And there's lots of fun stuff in the technology cards and using combos and special powers to your advantage. And the mini-game of racing to advance your position around those 3 tracks is quite fun too. I like the overall look of the game and the crew sculpts in particular. And I think this is a game where to get the most out of it, you really need the theme to speak to you. The best thing about this game is the epilogue chart, and I'm not going to spoil it here. However, Starship Captains is in an awkward place as a design. Too busy to be very casual friendly, and a bit too shallow to really sink your teeth into. It's very much a game that doesn't quite know what it wants to be. Family friendly 30-minute filler, or Euro game with tech trees and engine building. And the humor is very much, oh, that's a thing from that show I watched. For a much bigger space sandbox, try Zia, Legends of a Drift System. And for a much funnier Starship experience, try Space Cadets. Starship Captains, Roddenberries, get it? Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Steam Up in about 3 minutes. Deluxe version used. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 5 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. You and your friends are sitting down to eat some dim sum at your local Chinese restaurant. Can you spin the turntable around and nab all the delicious treats you want? The game ends after 18 rounds, tracked using 18 fate cards. Or once the steamer track, which moves down for every steamer purchased, reaches 0. The winner is the player with the most hearty points, which you mostly get from eating dim sum. Action selection. You must take 2 of these actions each turn. Contract fulfillment. You use food tokens to buy steamers. Variable player powers. Each player will have a different player board. Player turn. Each player picks one of the 12 player boards, each based on one of the animals from the Chinese zodiac. Note your unique ability and then take the shown starting resources and fortune cards. Also note the values you get for placing the 5 dim sum on your board. The roosters go from 1 to 3, left to right. Some characters, like the seafood-loving tiger here, have very different scoring systems. On your turn, you must take 2 actions, and they must be different actions, but they can be in any order. You may grab any food token from the supply. These tokens are limited, but you can hold as many as you want. You may draw a fortune card from the deck. This action also allows you to rotate the turntable 90 degrees in either direction. You may play a fortune card. Here we roll the lucky die and gain the matching token to our supply. This card is placed in the discard pile once it is used. There are many different fortune cards with many different effects. You may also rotate the turntable with this action. The 4th action is to discard 2 fortune cards for any food token. The final action is to buy a steamer. Each player has a marked part of the board that is their feast zone, which you can track using tokens. You may only purchase steamers from your feast zone. You are required to spend tokens that match the dim sum in the steamer you want. You then take that steamer, potentially revealing new ones below. Place the steamer near your board and place the dim sum on your player board. Each number you cover up is hearty points added to your score, so this steamer is worth a total of 6 points. Adjust that on the score track. Once all players have acted in a turn, turn over a fate card and resolve it. Note that the first player marker doesn't move automatically. It moves as a result of different fortune cards being played. Keep playing until the fate cards or steamer track runs out. Why would you like this game? Steam Up is a very light, fast-paced and somewhat silly game about fighting over a turntable of dim sum at a Chinese restaurant. And it's the sort of game that gives back the energy you put into it. So if you love games where there's a lot of slightly hostile interactions and constant reversals and chaos, you will get a lot back from Steam Up. And I really like the different player powers and bonuses. I'm not sure if they're balanced at all, but I don't think it matters, because this isn't a game you play to test how you can maximize points generation. It's all about the player interaction and sniping that last serving of dumplings. The best thing about this game is its overall presentation and appearance. It's a beautiful looking game. However, this is a low complexity game that has its elbows out. Lots of the fortune cards screw other players, and invariably the end game is a rush to shovel down those last few steamers. If you don't like chaos and conflict, this won't be for you. And it's not a deep game, and you shouldn't take it too seriously, so I can only recommend it to people who play games to have fun. For a different take on food, try Rival Restaurants. And for a more complex game of the Lazy Susan, try Planet Unknown. Steam Up. The pig likes it! Kia ora koutou and welcome to Storm Raiders in about 3 minutes. Deluxe Edition prototype used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players. Playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. There's an ancient storm here, blowing through the ruins of the old world, leaving debris and salvage in its wake. Can you brave the storm for the riches and glory it brings? The game ends after 6 rounds tracked here, with each player taking 2 actions per round. The winner is the player with the most points, and you mostly get those from completing deliveries and from increasing your scoring dials and collecting their matching components. Damage also loses you lots of points. Drafting. Each round you will draft 1 die from the central display. Variable player powers. Each raider and vehicle has unique powers. Contract fulfillment. There are contracts on the board for you to fulfill. Player turn. Each player takes a board and a raider. Adjust your 3 scoring dials based on the icons on your raider. Then take 1 of each vehicle type and place 1 damage on them, and get a starting crew card. Crew cards are flipped over when used. When it is your turn, you will draft a die. The dice color doesn't matter unless you have a specific power. To move, place that die on one of your vehicles. It must be a higher value than any die on that vehicle. You may then move that number of pips on the map along paths going through locations if you wish to. If you stop at a storm site, increase the dial matching that site by 1 step. Because we are using our trike, we can safely scavenge 2 goods from here. On our next turn, we draft a 2 and place it on our aircraft. This is because we want to travel this route and it has an aircraft marker on it. Aircraft can travel normal routes as well. There's a contract here, and we hand in those gathered resources, taking its token for 6 victory points and 1 medal. The third type of movement is with your submarine. You can only move between locations with sub symbols. You just need a die that equals or exceeds their combined values. Each vehicle takes damage from different actions. Picking up ammunition, which is a wildcard resource, damages all vehicles. The trike takes damage when you place a 5 or 6 on it. The aircraft takes damage if you pick up 2 goods at once or place a 6, and for the sub it's ammunition and 2 goods at once. If you earn a mod, it is placed to cover up one of these damage triggers. You may also take a rest action. Place a die and flip one of your crew cards back over. Then remove half the die's value in damage, and all dice equal or higher than its value. So high dice repair a lot, but remove few dice, and the reverse is true for lower dice. Then gain either a crew member, a medal, or a mod. The last die remaining in a around determines what direction and how far the storm moves. If the die is black, it follows the black arrow. Reverse if grey. The storm deposits resources in the area it moves through based on this chart, and any players in its path get hit for 1 damage to each vehicle. If you can't place a damage die, increase the slider. That shows what negative victory points each damage die is worth. At the end of each round, age up existing contracts and add new ones. Why would you like this game? Storm Raiders is a fantastic looking pick-up and delivery game with a fun and engaging central premise. The storm drops loads of resources, but it's also very dangerous to get close to. With 6 rounds and 2 actions, you only get 12 opportunities to do something in the game, and you have to make them count. Which is why you need to lean into the special powers your raider, vehicles, and crews get, and maximize every advantage you can gain there. And that's the Shem Phillips factor here. Storm Raiders looks like a fancy thematic game, but beneath its chrome, it's a tight action selection game about maximizing point scoring. And therefore, I'd recommend it to people who want a quick-paced action optimization game. The best thing about this game is the art direction and how it looks. Simply stunning. However, rest actions in this game can feel very strong, and that can be jarring. I also don't care that your special power is linked to the rest action, and it's not an active thing. Also, for a game with only 12 actions, you end up doing a lot of suboptimal moves that just feel bad. And that's in no small part to how quickly the board state can change in between turns and how restricted movement is. I also expected a bit more in terms of customizing your vehicles throughout the game. For a different take on pickup and delivery, try Wasteland Express delivery service. And for more focused dice drafting, try Twa. Storm Raiders. No, not like that. Like this. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to The Spill in about 3 minutes. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. There has been another industrial accident on a major oil rig. Can you and the members of your task force contain the oil before it does too much damage? You all lose the game if you have at least 1 of each animal type in sickbay, 3 of the same animal type in sickbay, or there are 6 spillouts in play. You all win if you manage to complete all of the win conditions in the card you have chosen for this game. Variable player powers. Each character has their own unique powers. Dice. The game revolves around these dice representing oil and weather. Card management. You have a small pool of special cards to manage as a group. Player turn. Every game of the Spill is played with 4 characters. If you are playing the game with less players, you will either have to play multiple characters or share control of some. Each character has a reference board with their special power on it. You take your ship token and these 5 tokens that are placed on top of each card. They are connected to the weather dice. Start the turn by drawing a number of dice from the bag as shown by the big oil drop marker. Let's ignore the blue weather dice for now. Grab any dice in the extra action pool too. Take these dice and drop them into the tower. They should end up in one of the 4 quadrants. Let's cheat and put all 4 dice in this one quadrant. We take them one at a time and assign them to the matching number on the outer ring. If you end up with the same spot as an animal, flip it to its oil-covered side. If all 3 spaces in a row are filled up, place a spillout marker. Advance this marker each time a spillout happens. Note this is also a way you can change the game's difficulty. On your character's turn, you will have 4 action points, and you can take the same action multiple times if desired. The first action is to push back the oil. This returns the oil dice to the draw bag. Alternatively, you can remove the oil for 3 action points. Removed oil goes here. You can rescue a clean animal for 1 action point, and an oil-soaked animal for 2 actions. Those rescued animals go here without changing their sides. This can be relevant for various victory cards, and you can spend an action to move your boat 1 or 2 sectors. You can also get up to 2 extra action points, but this means you'll be dropping extra dice next turn. If an animal is still soaked at the end of your turn, it goes to sickbay. If you collect the full row of animals, gain an orange cube. The same is true when you collect a column of oil dice. These cubes charge up these cards, which can be used for their special power and then discarded. Draw a replacement though. Finally, a note about the weather dice. When one of these is drawn, players flip over the matching marker on their sheet, and then turn it over at the end of their turn, meaning all players get hit by it once. Their effects are from left to right. You cannot use resource cards, you cannot use your character's special power, your movement's reduced by 1, it costs 1 more action point to rescue animals, each player gains a bonus action point, or immediately drop 3 more oil into the well. Once your character's turn is done, it is the next character's turn. Why would you like this game? The Spill has quite a few things going for it. The first is a heroic and family-friendly theme. You'd have to be a rather odd sausage to find something wrong with rescuing animals from an oil spill. There's a bunch of different player powers you can choose from, as well as the resource cards. All of this gives you different levers to pull on throughout the game. And the variable win conditions are a nice touch. The hard ones are quite hard. The tower is a neat system, and unlike King of Monster Island, the dice don't fly everywhere when it's used. All up, the Spill is a low complexity co-op that is reasonably solid without being spectacular. Yet, because of its theme and variable win conditions, could be a great hit for families and casual gamers. The best thing about this game is its table presence. The tower and how it works is very eye-catching. However, my big gripe about the game is how bound it is to 4 characters, and how much each character really has to look after their own sector. You can't roam the board board very much, which means it's hard to be responsive at times. Also, the tower makes it a bit of a pain to set up and pack up. An obvious comparison is to the modern classic co-op Pandemic. And for another game with a dice drop system, try King of Monster Island. The Spill, not quite as cool as it looks. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Ticket to Ride Europe in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has no solo mode. It's a game for 2 to 5 players. Playing time is medium, and it's a pretty simple game. In Ticket to Ride Europe, you are competing to travel all around Europe on its various trains and ferry lines. Can you travel the most distance and collect the most tickets to win the game? The game ends shortly after one player has 2 or less trains remaining. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get them from building train lines and completing tickets. Drafting. You will draft cards from a central display. Network building. You'll build networks on the board to score points. Card management and set collection. You need to collect sets of cards to claim routes, and there is no hand limit. Player turn. Start the game by giving each player all of their train cards and 4 ticket cards. They can choose to keep any number of these, but failing to complete tickets loses you points. On your turn, you will take one of 4 actions. The first action is to draw 3 new tickets. You must then choose at least one of those to keep. In the game, there are 8 different coloured cards, as well as locomotives, which are wild cards that count as any and all colours. The second action you can take is to draft 2 cards from the display. You may take one card, replace it, and then take another. And you can take any combination of card colours. But if you take a locomotive, it counts as both your card drafts for that turn. However, you may choose to blind draft off the top of the deck, in which case you might get lucky and draw 2 of those locomotives. The third action is to claim routes, and normally you need a number of matching colour cards equal to the route's length. So here that is 4 blue cards for this 4 long blue route. Place your player trains on the route and score it using this chart as a reference. Some routes are grey, which means you can use any matching colour cards on them. And some paths have multiple routes, and in this case, each route must be claimed by a different player. And as mentioned, locomotives are wild cards and can be added to any set. Ferries are special routes that show a locomotive icon on them. These must be completed using a normal set combined with locomotives as shown on the map. Bordered routes are tunnels, and you build them as normal, but then you must draw 3 cards from the deck. For each one matching the set you used, and for each locomotive, you must spend that many more cards to build the line, or else return all your played cards to hand. The final action is to place a train station. Your first station needs 1 ticket, and your second and third need 2 and 3 respectively. Stations allow you to use other players' routes to complete tickets. Also, when the game is over, the player with the longest unbroken network scores 10 more points. Why would you like this game? Everything I said about Ticket to Ride in my previous review rings true for Ticket to Ride Europe, but there are some notable differences between the game. Europe is like an advanced mode of the original Ticket to Ride, adding in ferries, tunnels, and having a more complex map, meaning it is a little bit more challenging. And there is a long debate about which game is better, but in terms of sales and ratings, they're very, very close. I personally see Europe as the better pick of them because it does have a more interesting map, and while tunnels are frustrating, they are interesting. So once again, this is a game ideally suited for casual gamers and families. The best thing about this game is that the board starts as an open canvas and every game evolves differently, just like the original. However, if you are playing it with family, you should really try the original first just in case that's the right level for your group. And even though it's a step up in complexity, it's a very small step up. If you buy this thinking it's a deeply complex Euro game, you're gonna be disappointed. You can see our review of the original Ticket to Ride here, and for a different take on trains, try Maglev Metro. Ticket to Ride Europe. Petrograd. What year is this game? Kia ora koutou and welcome to Ticket to Ride in about 3 minutes. It has no solo mode, it's a game for 2 to 5 players, playing time is short, and it's a pretty simple game. In Ticket to Ride, you are building a rail network across North America. The winner will be the player whose train network is biggest and most in demand. The game ends around after one player has 2 or less trains left in their reserve. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get points whenever you complete a line, as well as from objective cards. Drafting, you will select train cards from the face-up display. Set collection, you need matching sets to build railway links. Network building, placing rail links and connecting them up is how you score points. Player turn, each player grabs all the train cards matching their chosen player colour as well as a scoring marker. Place that scoring marker at the start of the scoring track on the board. Then grab all the cards and give them a mighty shuffle. There are 12 of each colour and 14 wild cards. Then deal 4 cards to each player, then place 5 more face up where everyone can see them. Then deal each player 3 ticket cards. These are objectives that you can score points if you complete them. You lose points if you don't complete them. Right now you can keep or discard them. On your turn you will take one of 3 actions. The first action is to take cards into your hand. You may take 2 a turn. Replace the card you take with a new one from the top of the deck. If you choose to take a wild card like this, it costs both your actions. But you may also choose to take cards unseen from the top of the pile. There is no limit to the number of cards you can hold. The second action is to build a rail link. To do this, you need the right number of cards matching the color of the link you want to build. This link here is orange and 4 spots long, so we need 4 orange cards. We discard those cards and cover up the rail link with our colored train cards. Then check this reference card for how many train cards were in the link you placed. On the right, that shows how many points you just scored. Advance your scoring marker that many spaces. This rail link has 2 paths. Another player could later play 4 black cards to build the link here. Note that you do not need to place rail links connecting to existing rail links. There are also grey links that can be built with any matching set, so say pink or orange cards would work equally well here. Finally, locomotive wild cards count as any card color, so we can play these 5 cards here to build on the green line. The final action is to draw 3 objective cards, and you must choose to keep at least one of them. Add those cards to your current objectives. Also, when the game is over, the player with the longest unbroken network scores 10 more points. Why would you like this game? Ticket to Ride is one of the most successful Foundation games in the hobby, and with good reason. It's a simple enough game that can be learned by practically anyone, and drafting, set collection, hidden objectives, and network building are great mechanical building blocks for learning more complex games. And once people are familiar with the rules, the game can fly by, meaning it rarely overstays its welcome. And I really do like that you lose points for not completing objectives. It makes the end game a lot tenser. But Ticket to Ride is a family game first and foremost, and that's what it really excels at. The best thing about this game is the board starts as an open canvas, and every game evolves differently. However, having no hand limit is one of those rules that brings out some odd behavior in some groups, and I have seen people take card hoarding to an extreme length. And while it can be a great family game, some maturity is required to deal with all the blocking and planned derailments that can happen in the game. For a more complex network building game, try Power Grid. And to see a train game on a whole different level, try Imperial Spells and Steam. Ticket to Ride.
My baby don't care.
Kia ora koutou and welcome to Teletum in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is long, and it's a pretty complex game. You are a merchant family in Renaissance Europe. Can you create a trade network and contribute to the construction of cathedrals all over the continent? The game ends after 4 full rounds of play, with each round having 3 turns per player. The winner is the player with the most points, and you get them from many places. Drafting. Each turn you will draft dice and take actions with them. Player turn. Each player has a board. You will have 2 pillars and houses. The rest are placed on your board for later, along with your improvement tiles. The game has 5 resources that match the dice colors. At the start of the round, roll dice based on player count and assign them around this display based on their values. On your turn, you will pick 1 die and gain the number of matching resources. You may then take the action shown here that many times. So for this die, that would be 5 architect actions. The more resources you take, the fewer actions you get. If you are the first person to take a die from that group this round, you claim a bonus token too. Let's look at the actions. For each architect action, you can move your architect 1 space on the board. You can claim a bonus token from the city you are in, and you can place a pillar if you have one. You may take these actions in any order and multiple times. Note the 5 discs here. I use those to track the 5 actions my die allowed me to take. Merchant actions are similar, but also allow you to build houses in available spaces if you have them. The people action lets you acquire people tiles here for 1 action each, or you can reset all of them for 1 action as well. We have these 2 people to place on our board, and they must go on the leftmost lane. This is because we have 1 of that type there already, and each lane must be different. The cost in people actions to place them is shown on the left. Gain any bonuses on them when you place them, and by filling a room like this, we unlock the house on top for use. The contract action lets you trade resources, and the first time you trade one each turn, you get an extra one. It also lets you pick up contracts here and place them on your board. And the king action advances you on this track. This track determines turn order and awards points. The final action is a joker action and it lets you do any other action. At any time in your turn you can do bonus actions called tasks. One is to pay food to place a crest below a room. You then get the special action below it, and it has a completed room above it. You gain a bonus token that improves your later dice drafts. Other tasks include paying resources to complete contracts on your board. Place them in the top row and claim a pillar, gaining points on the contract and below the pillar. You can also build a cathedral by spending the stone shown if you have a pillar there. Gain the points on both the build tile and the cathedral tile. Finally, any player with presence in the current turn's objective city scores that objective's points at the end of each round. Why would you like this game? Teletum is a game for people who like to be able to do a lot of different things on their turn, because it's all about chaining together multiple actions across different parts of the board and setting yourself up for big turns later on. As a result, it rewards players who have an overall plan, or at least an overall approach, because the different dice and available tiles will make you shift and adapt constantly throughout the game. The dice values marker changes position at the end of each turn, so actions that were easy to do become harder later and vice versa. Planning around that is quite interesting. That said, I think this game is best suited to experienced Eurogamers and other veterans of the hobby. The best thing about this game is the core dice system. Trading actions for resources is a good decision point. However, some turns can get very silly with a lot of actions and extra actions. This player can take 7 actions plus whatever their die result was, plus any bonus actions they obtained this turn. Sometimes this feels cool, but a lot of the time it just makes the game feel sloppy. And that's Tilitum in a nutshell, a game that feels like it should be a tight Euro, but is really quite meandering at times. And this color palette is a joke. 3 different greys, come on. And for a different take on action wheels, try Praga Caput Regni. And for a different take on dice drafting, try Trois. Tilitum, this is not blue. Kia ora koutou and welcome to Votes for Women in about 3 minutes, review copy used. It has a solo mode, it's a game for 1 to 3 players, playing time is medium, and it's a moderately complex game. You are either leading the women's suffrage movement or its opposition through 70 years of campaigns, protests, wars and rallies. Can you lead your forces to victory in this historic conflict? The game ends after 6 full rounds of play, and it is a win for the suffragette player if 36 states vote yes, or a loss if 13 vote no. However, if this white track is not full by the end of round 6, the suffragette player immediately loses. Card management. Every action you take involves playing a card. Area control. Controlling states on the board is the key to winning. Dice. This game has a bunch of dice rolls in it. Player turn. Each player takes their specific deck of cards and sorts them into early, middle, and late piles. Draw 6 more cards to go with your start card. Then, starting with the opposition player, each player plays their start card. On your turn, you will discard 1 card to take one of the following 4 actions. The first action is to play the card for the event printed on it. Here we roll an 8 and get a 1. We can spend one of our buttons to re-roll that die. We can place 1 influence in each of the blue states. That gives us 2 in New York here, but as the opposition player has 1 influence in each other state, the best we can do is remove those, as the suffragette and opposition players' markers cannot coexist. Some event cards have effects that last until the end of the round, others for the rest of the game, and others impact final scoring. The second action is to campaign, and here you normally roll a blue die for each of your campaigners. But as this event is in place, we roll a red die. Add that die's value influence to that region. You can also spend a button to move a campaigner to another region, and a button can re-roll these dice as well. You can play a card to collect 1 button per campaigner you have on the board. And the final main action is to lobby Congress. For each campaigner on the board, roll 1 red die and buttons can re-roll, and for each 6 rolled, place 1 cylinder here. The opposition player lobbies to remove the cylinders using the same process. At the end of the round, you should have 1 card left. Draw up to 7 cards for the next round. And then on rounds 2 through 6, you start by bidding for strategy cards. There will be 3 available at any time. The suffragette player bids buttons. If the opposition player doesn't counter, the suffragette player claims the card. If they match the bid, no one gets anything, and if they overbid, they claim the card instead. In any case, all buttons bid are discarded. At the start of the game, there are 9 random state cards available. The first player to place 4 influence in the named state claims that card. And once per turn, you can play one of these claimed cards as a bonus action. Each card is played once and discarded. Once the 6th cylinder is placed here, no more lobbying can take place. Then any state with 4 or more cubes in it immediately decides to be a no or yes state. And if the 6 rounds end, you roll off for each state, with influence modifying your dice roll. Why would you like this game? I am a big fan of card-driven war games such as Paths of Glory and Twilight Struggle, and Votes for Women takes the mechanical concepts of those games and streamlines them down to a really distilled format. Each round is a card play and one of 4 easy to remember actions, and that makes it a game that is reasonably easy to learn compared to how it looks. But it also has the depth of a war game, with an ever-changing board state, dynamic reversals of fortune, and exciting card play that drives the game along at a fast pace. The inclusion of multiple historical documents in the box is amazing, and represents the best aspects of historic wargaming. All up, a greatly thematic and accessible competitive game that also would work as a great change of pace for experienced wargamers. The best thing about this game is how brutally and honestly it treats its subject matter. However, Votes for Women is a directly confrontational game and almost entirely about crushing your opponent in order to win. If in-your-face confrontation is not for you, best avoid it. For a more complex game with similar ideas, try 1960 Making of a President, and it also compares favourably to Twilight Struggle. Votes for Women, gold medal game. Kia ora koutou and welcome to V-Sabotage in about 3 minutes. Review copy used. Review also features components from expansions. It has a solo mode. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, playing time is medium to long, and it's a moderately complex game. It's World War II and you are in charge of a small group of commandos striking deep behind enemy lines. Can you master stealth and maneuver in order to stick it to Hitler and his fascist regime? The map ends if you complete the stated goals and escape via a tunnel. You may need to complete multiple maps to win the mission. You lose if all your commandos are killed. Variable player powers. Each commando has unique powers and are double-sided. Dice. Combat and stealth is resolved with dice. Player turn. First Just select one of the missions. It will show you how many commandos you need and how long the game will take. Look at the mission card and its special rules, and then set up the first map. Shaded tiles are inside tiles. Also place down doors, reinforcement entry points, alarms, tunnels, any starting equipment, objectives, and one trooper to guard each triangle marker. The board is made up of large, medium, and small tiles. Tile size impacts a lot of rules. Then select the number of commandos for the mission and take their models. On your turn, each commando will have 3 action points. It costs 1 action to move onto a small tile, and 1 action to move onto a medium tile if you don't mind being revealed. If you want to stay hidden, however, it costs 2 actions. Picking up items in your area is a free action. The sniper takes the same actions as the officer, and then the scout, whose special abilities are cheaper stealthy movement, moves 1 extra space. Let's jump to the next turn. You start each round by drawing an event card. This one gives one commando an extra action token. Now the officer is stealthy here, which means they can spend 1 action to kill the guard, who drops a random item token. The second and third actions are to move onto the small tiles. The final tile has a guard on it, so we make a stealth roll. This result is a failure. Our officer is revealed and the alarm is now sounding. The officer has the +1 action token from the event, so takes a 4th action to shoot their gun, rolling 2 dice. The number needed to hit is shown on the tile. He rolls 1/4 and removes the enemy. This was a noisy attack, but as the alarm is already sounding, you don't need to worry too much about that. The sniper then acts and moves to the alarm tile and deactivates it. You may only disable the alarm once per map. The scout then sneaks into this room, makes a stealth roll and eliminates the guard, then spends their final action interacting with the objective. Once all players are done, place 1 enemy token on each tile by a spawn point, and place 2 if the alarm is currently sounding. Then all enemies move based on the direction shown on the event card. If they come across a revealed commando, they will attack, rolling the number of dice shown on them. Each hit does a wound, and each wound reduces the number of actions a commando can take. End the mission by completing objectives and escaping into a tunnel. Why would you like this game? Now in the video I use tokens for simplicity's sake, but this game also has a miniatures expansion which gives the game a very different feel. V-Sabotage superficially looks a bit like Zombicide until you realize it's no chaotic dice chucker. No, V-Sabotage is a precision game, and it's very much a puzzle where each level is a challenge to be solved. And your characters and their wide variety of potential equipment gives you lots of ways to approach each level. For example, one of my favorite little things is using a crowbar to block a spawn point for a turn. In addition, the expansions offer long-form campaign play. The best thing about this game is being revealed in a room of bad guys. It's an immediate death sentence. However, this game is a tightrope, and the best way to play is to try to plan out as much of your turn as possible in advance. And as a result, I believe it's best suited for solo play, as with 3 to 4 players, you don't get to do much on your turn. And just an aside comment, this is how zombie survival games should work, and a surprise there isn't a zombie game like this. For a different take on stealth, try Clank in Space. And to go in guns blazing, try Aliens: Another Glorious Day in the Core. V-Sabotage. The V is for victory. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the notification button, like, share, and subscribe to the channel.